The Esports Racing League is back. If you've joined us on our journey so far in 2022, you know what this is all about. The best in the world across the sim racing universe, challenging themselves across of the different platforms that are available. If you're new, welcome. You're in for a treat. 2 races have already taken place in the Spring Cup on the road to the 2023 Esports Racing World Cup. We've gone to Assetto Corsa Competizione, we've gone to rFactor 2, but now we land in iRacing with the V8 supercars, and what fun this should be based on what we saw with Redline and Apex Racing team at Okayama at the end of January. Delighted to join you today. My name is Arjuna Kankipati. Alongside, as always, are our VCO experts, Luke Crane and Lewis McLeod. And I'll go to you first here, Lewis. We got plenty of prize money on the line, but ultimately bragging rights is here as well. And very difficult to really adapt to the different platforms, but we've seen Redline really be your dominant force so far in 2023.
Well, I mean, the real thing is with this championship, same as with ERWC as well, is that only 2 teams have been able to get through a day and take a victory. Unicorns of Love and, of course, Team Redline. Redline have done it 3 times. Unicorn of Love have done it twice, both on ACC. Now, this is the sort of questions that are laid at the door now as to who can get among them. Redline was super dominant in this car in the ERWC. They're a guarantee for the Masters when we get to it in a couple of weeks' time. We're looking at who's going to win today. We're also, though, looking at who else is going to get themselves that Masters. John Lacey, Esports Academy and Rocket Sim Sports are right on the cusp, right at the bottom, but there are so many other teams that can sneak their way through.
Remember, the top 12 after today in points will head through to the Masters, where, Luke, we love some one-on-one, mano and mano. That's what we're in for in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, absolutely, and I feel like that's where surprises can happen. If Redline are indeed going to be that #1 seed, we feel like they probably will be, who are they going to go up against? Who are the 12th seed? Is there going to be a team that hits form around about now, finds their feet, just about makes it in, and then it is, again, a 1v1. Someone makes a mistake, and it can all be over very, very, very quickly indeed. And this is sim racing plus esports, if you like. It's very unique in what we're trying to achieve, and super excited to see how it goes down.
I like that distinction. We're not sim racing, we are esports racing. Let's quickly look at the standings with 2 rounds done and 1 to go in this Spring Cup. We split this road to the Esports Racing World Cup into the spring, the summer, and the fall. Redline have been almost perfect, reached all 2 of our finals so far. And as we head to what might be their preferred sim, they have a 4-point lead over the Unicorns of Love, RAG, Veloce, and Williams, all 5 looking somewhat comfortable to work their way into our Masters 2 weeks from today, 20th of April, in Assetto Corsa Competizione. Let's talk about prize money very quickly. $2,800 on the line today. $10,000 will be on the line in that Masters, so it's not chump change. There's plenty to play for here. We've got some big teams that have joined us to start this season off. Redline, for example, were there with our World Cup, along with the likes of RAG and Williams. New teams that you might not have seen if you only joined us at the end of January, the likes of Brabham Esports, E-Team Brit, who we'll get a fascinating conversation with later on today, as well as the legions of racers from Singapore. Got a roster of 5 that you were allowed to pick 3 drivers for each event. Should note that today, with some other events going on as well, certain teams only able to put forward 2 drivers. We always talk about how crucial that is for them, Luke, to make sure that they stay out of trouble.
Yeah, 100%. You know, with 3 drivers, you have that little bit of an insurance plan where if one driver gets potentially punted out, these are 10-minute, 15-minute races. They are frantic. People are taking chances. People are trying to make overtakes as soon as possible. Mistakes happen. And, you know, if you've only got 2 drivers and you get one of them sent right back to the back of the grid, you're heading into that last chance qualifier race. If it happens again, you're heading out of the competition at the first time of asking. It's as simple as that. So just having 3 is massively important. We've seen one team over the course of, 5 events we've had so far in Yaz Heat, when Yaroslav Honzik wasn't very well, do relatively well, but again, once it got to the quarterfinals, they struggled. It was almost impossible for them to go any further than that. But we've not seen any other team manage to pull any, magical results out, if you like, with 2 drivers. So yeah, it's going to be a massive challenge for those teams. But again, for all the rest of the teams, we've got 3. It's even more of an opportunity for them to progress, get those points, reach that Masters.
And let's talk about our format. Lewis, you're going to be the one dialing us through what we're in for today.
Yeah, of course, it all begins with the heats. We've done this format a few times now. We're all getting used to how it works. They'll split themselves up between 3 heats in this one, 8, 9, and 9. And it's the top 4 teams from each heat which progress through automatically into the quarterfinals. For everyone else, there is a second chance. Luke loves to call it the final chance, and it is their last chance to get in to that quarterfinals. It is a tough race, though. 14 teams and only 2 go through. It leaves us with 14 in the quarterfinals. We then head down to 6 teams, which should be roughly, of course, 18 cars, depending on how many teams get through with 3 cars. And then we head through to our favorite bit of basically all of this, a head-to-head, just a battle between 2 teams, best of 3. And on almost every occasion, we have seen it go to those 3 races. Last time out, though, lads, we only had 2, and I wonder if that's going to happen today.
All depends on who makes it through to the finals. I think that's what we're looking at. Remember today as well, you were helping us choose where we went racing. The option was between heading to Brands Hatch or to Sonoma. Either way, it would have been a new country, with round 1 taking us to Misano in Italy, round 2 taking us to Zandvoort in the Netherlands, but 66% of you decided we'll go racing around Brands Hatch. Will we see some wheel-to-wheel, door-to-door action? I have no doubt about that in the V8 Supercars, which we are running here today. Should be noted when we talk about the format as well, Luke, that it's not just about getting to the finals. Even if you only make it to the quarterfinals, being in a good position to get some good points on the board is vital, because even though the top 12 will only advance to the Masters, the top 12 cumulatively over the course of the spring, summer, and fall cups will make it through to our hopefully in-person Esports Racing World Cup in 2023.
Yeah, 100%. The first step, though, is reaching that Masters, going out for that 10 grand prize pool in a couple of weeks' time. I think you're going to need around about 33 points to be guaranteed that top 12 spot. I could well be wrong, but I think it's going to be around about 33 points. So today, you just got to try and get that business done. There'll be a few teams here that don't feel like they can win this today, but just reaching to that Masters where it's a new format once again, 1v1s. I cannot stress how excited I am for that. Anything can indeed go down there. I do want to just give a quick shout out. Williams Esports, I mentioned this last time out. They are currently 5th. And can you guys remember anything of note from them? Like any major performances? I can't, and yet they're still in 5th position. So they have the ability just to get the job done, get those points on the board, and they haven't really announced themselves yet this season. So I'm excited to see when they finally do, what could they achieve?
Yeah, it was just their ACC performance where they ended up 3rd. We'll see how well they can do today. We know they're not exactly slouches on the iRacing platform. However, the first heat race is coming up. We're going to see teams like Team Redline and Veloce jumping onto the circuit, and Arjuna and Luke are going to take it away for this one.
Cars are already getting themselves lined up on the grid here. Does appear as though we're in for a standing start, so somewhat of a change to what we've seen in the past. Should be plenty of excitement. Let's have a quick look then at your starting lineup here today. Enzo Benito for Team Redline puts it on pole. Luke's gonna love that. Jake Burden alongside, watch out for him, a V8 Supercar specialist for Yassid, with Redline rounding out the top 4 with all 3 of their cars inside comfortably, looking to dominate once more. Andre Martins, Emily Jones, 5th and 6th. Good day overall for Yassid, looking to get some great points, but Kazuki Umeshima in 7th, along with Marco Page and Isaac Gillison. Veloce getting some valuable points on the board. Mika Hakimi for Brabham Esports will round out the top 10. We'll scroll through the rest of the names here, Luke, but standing starts in this V8 Supercar, no easy feat, and I think that's where the specialist will really ride to the fold.
Yeah, 100%. It is a very difficult car to get off the line. You're going to see a lot of smoke being torn up, and you might see a couple of cars facing in the wrong direction. And yeah, I know that these are the very best in the world, but when pressure is on, ultimately that's where mistakes can happen. Very impressed to see a Yas Heat car there on the front row of the grid, but look at Team Redline at the front here. It's race 1, Arjuna. Let's get it on.
Oh, this is what we love. We missed it. It's every 2 weeks, but we love it if it was every day, back-to-back, like our Esports Racing World Cup was. The Spring Cup is ready to come to an end. We're ready to race at Brands Hatch. We've got 22 cars locked and loaded. What should be a 10-minute brawl here in the British Isles. Engines rev, lights come up. We're underway with the final regular season race. And it's a great start from Jake Burden. That's the V8 Supercars experience. He's going to get the bumper, though, from one of those Redline cars. Enzo Benito got swarmed on that start, but Redline still 2nd, 3rd, and 4th as they climb the hill up to Druids. Jake Burden leads the way.
Yeah, Enzo real lucky there that there's 460 Redline cars in the front of this grid. Otherwise, he could have been right in the mid-pack there with, well, all the other teams there. So he knows he's going to get a little bit of leeway with those other drivers. But as it stands, it is a phenomenal start then for Team Yaz Heat. Only 2 drivers with a car off the circuit there. That is not ideal as well. That's Evan Marion. Therefore, no, it's Burst Esports guys. I'm going to get it right today. I can promise you that. But at the front end, Yaz Heat then, a very, very good start indeed. And where's the nearest next Yaz Heat? There's a Rocket Sim Sport car. Aleric Enslin not having a good day here. More of an ACC specialist, but would be looking to get a big, huge performance today, really to announce himself within the team and the competition. But again, it's looking superbly good for Team Redline and Yaz Heat. But I'm interested to see where the second Yaz Heat team car is, because ultimately you need 2 to do well here.
And that's Zoltan Schutte in that Mirror Esports machine. Should be noted that other car was an E-Team Brit's like issue with deliveries that will get fixed up as soon as possible. That was the Brabham Esports car of Sido Weiger. Through the final corner they come though. Already on the offensive is Patrick Holtzman trying to get in front of Enzo Benito. Emily Jones sits behind as they cross the line for the very first time. Jake Burton leads, and if you look at the left side of the screen, you'll see the team logos. Remember, the top 2 will advance, or the top 2 will score points as they look to advance from here. Redline in a good spot, Yaz Heat not in a bad spot as well. Veloce's in the mix, and really the issue for Burst with, we saw Evan Marion around, Mitchie Hoyer only down in 16. Rocket Simsport might not be in the worst position, 11th and 13th.
Holtzman's let Benito go through there, by the way. Benito obviously qualified pole, probably got the outright pace on the sim, so he's let him go through here. And also, he will be looking for the most valuable driver podiums, whereas Lullum and Holtzman, it's the first time they've been involved during this Spring Cup, so it makes sense to help Benito out. I would imagine they're going to be, sharing the spoils from that, as we're on board here then with P5, Emily Jones, who in practice was a little bit off the pace actually, and we were a little bit worried, but big game player is Emily, and absolutely performing here at a huge level, currently in P5, with Payech backing her up beautifully well there in P7, and then Isaac Gillison down in P9. So all 3 Veloce drivers looking superbly well. In terms of Yaz Heat, the second driver is in P10. So right now it is Redline, it's Veloce, it is Yaz Heat, all looking golden to go through as it stands. And I think then it might be Rocket Simsport in 12th and maybe 13th position. Again, if I'm getting the logo correct there. But outside of that, it is wide open.
Me and Lewis were kind of wondering before we went live as to whether maybe you would pair up Jake Burton and Emily Jones, who have worked together in the past, but also have plenty of V8 Supercars experience, as Chris Lullum is off into the kitty litter, will control that one nicely. But I think what we are seeing is Veloce's got that support to back up that performance, as Luchak is slipping backwards in the field. He's down to 14th. You can see the damage on the left side of his car as well. That's the sort of wheel-to-wheel, door-to-door action that you expect in this V8 Supercar.
Yeah, 100%. That's the nature of this car. You can get away with a little bit of door banging, but ultimately, the most instances you're likely to see is drivers making their own errors by just getting on the power a little bit too early. This car loves to indeed spin that tail, if you like. It's like a happy dog chasing its tail. Its head becomes the back, and its tail becomes the front. We've got 2 carbon drivers here battling for position. They're also trying to indeed keep Gergo Boldy in behind them as well, by the looks of things. Although, is that Gergo Boldy or is that Mitchie Hoyer now? No, it is Boldy. Boldy in behind them. And yeah, the carbon 13th and 14th, 27 points, judging by everybody else's performance as it stands. I think that could be, oh, hold on, is it top 4, isn't it? Top 4 to go through at this stage. So yeah, right now it's looking good for Redline, Yaz Heat, Veloce, and I would probably say Rocket Simsport, right?
11 plus 12 is 23, 16 plus 6 is 22. So I actually think Burst is in a decent spot, but it all comes down to Michael Hoyer, as he does not like to be called, so we'll make sure that we don't say that too much. Mitchie Hoyer, who's down in 16th, very much an rFactor 2 specialist, but comes over to iRacing quite consistently. Kazuki Umeshima, former World Championship competitor here on iRacing, sits up in 6th. Had some decent pace at Okayama in the Esports Racing World Cup in this car, but then had some bad luck as well, some contacts, some mistakes. Good to see it at the very least, though, that he's up there at the front and not content to be too conservative. That's the word I'm looking for, as Boldy's looking to go aggressive.
Yeah, and again, at this stage of the competition, if you haven't got someone in your ear telling you that you are in a good position, then you're probably missing a trick or two here, as we're on board then with Boldy. currently in what would be P15. Doesn't have a teammate backing them up as it stands, though, so it would be a last chance race. Unfortunately, that's just the last place you want to be. You know, straight off the bat, it's not the race you need to be in. You want to try and get safe passage through to our quarterfinals and ultimately then battle it out for the big points. Make your way towards the Masters, potentially even make your way towards the final here today and grab some huge points or some money. As it stands though, Burton still leading the way. A phenomenal start off the line from second position, got into the lead, has not looked back now. 0.8 of a second clear from Chris Lullen. We got then Enzo Benito and Holtzman, who did swap positions earlier on, and it seems like it's the best idea at this stage because Benito has put out a bit of a gap. Although, here we go.
Yeah, first 2 penalty points for, we saw Evan Marion around, so race controllers judged that it was his fault for that contact, and now that puts Rocket Simsport in a beautiful spot to work themselves forward. Remember, like Luke said, 4 advanced Redline very comfortably going to work their way through as that #1 team in this heat #1. Jake Burden and Yassit should go through as well. Veloce would be team 3, and as it stands, yeah, it is Rocket that's in the mix, although you never count out Brabham. All it takes is a bit of chaos and maybe they'd be up in the mix as well.
Yeah, for sure. Again, and that's what a couple of these teams are hoping for. Brands Hatch, though, does indeed lend itself to that. So the potential for a couple of mistakes is absolutely on the cards as we're on board here with Hakimi battling with Isaac Gillison. Gillison just in behind, who's had a relatively quiet Spring Cup, if you like, and we'll be looking to try and make some advancements here. But with your first 2 drivers being 5th and indeed 7th, just don't get involved in something that might cause you a penalty.
Yeah, that's the name of the game for Gillison, but you can see having a look down the inside into the penultimate corner on Mika Hakimi. Again, we'll get the liveries updated, folks. Sorry about that. It's my fault, so that's why I'm apologizing about it so much. 3 odd minutes to go, with the lap times here being about 1 minute 25. I think we're actually looking at potentially... Oh, no, we'll have 2 laps to go, I believe. So it should be 2 to go this point around, and there's a look on board with Gillison. I always just marvel, Luke, when we watch these top-class sim races, how calm, how cool they are, because I'm definitely not like that.
Yeah, at this stage, though, you know, 2022 we're in, these drivers have been in LAN environments for the most part. Most of these drivers would have been anyway. So this is a walk in the park, right? You're in your comfort of your own home. Probably got your own favorite pillow that you're sat on. So yeah, it's kind of to be expected now because sim racing as an esport has grown to the level where there's a competition pretty much every week now. Like the fact that we've got a couple of drivers missing today because they're taking part in another massive competition, the SRO Esports on ACC. You know, it's just testament to how big the scene's got. We've got 2 huge events happening on the very same day. So yeah, that's why, you know, the more times you take part in competitions, the more relaxed you become, and yeah, the more relaxed you look on camera. Although it does look like they're relaxed, but I'm sure they're still going to be 50p, 5p at the same time.
Busy week for VCO this weekend, the first of your 2022 VCO Grand Slam, the 24 hours of the Nürburgring. Join RaceBot TV and Radio Show Limited for uninterrupted coverage of all 24 hours as we blast our way twice around the clock at the green. Hell, here comes Gillison, though, looking to set up a move down onto the Brabham straight and up and under on the Brabham Esports driver. He's got the drive off the corner. Lurking in the background is as well Andre Martins, as Carbon Simsport has 2 penalty points to their name as well. There goes Veloce. Here comes the Yassit car to the inside. Got to be careful. Only 2 of those green and black machines in today's race. No penalty points can be afforded. Still side by side as they work through Druids.
Yeah, brilliant here. It's almost worthwhile sticking behind this battle and not getting involved too much here as we come down towards Graham Hill. And it is just about going to be done there by the Yas heat cars. Brilliant stuff in the end by Martin. So yeah, Hakimi now is going to try and come back through, but just not really able to do so. But you just don't want to be taking too many chances at this stage, especially if you're the 3rd driver of the team. Like, I'm really surprised that Gillison's gone for it as we see some more battling in a bit further back here. Luca Burke then, and this is vital here. They cannot afford to lose positions, ultimately, because it could cost them going through to the next stage.
I think they're still in a decent spot. Remember, Burst has those penalty points, although having said that, Hoyer's moved forward 1, 11 plus 13, 24, 6 plus 15, 21 plus 2 means 23. In fact, that 1 position might be the game for Luca Burke. He's got to get on through. I think we are going to get one more lap, although it is awful close as Jake Burden is rounding himself through the final corner. Checker flag gonna fly, no more opportunities. Victorious as Jake Burden on his debut in the Esports Racing League for Yassi. Redline second through fourth will sweep their way into the next stage of this competition. All eyes focused though on Burke and that battle with Carbon Simsport. Is he going to be able to get on through? Hakimi's got a place as they fight side by side to the line, but Rocket Simsport look like they're going to the second chance race.
That is huge. Jazz Heat have just provided an individual performance, which again, as the later on you go in this competition, the more chances of an individual taking over and dragging you towards those finals is a massive possibility. The fact that all three Redline drivers were beaten there, quite convincingly as well, that is massive for today. So, you know, you always come into the iRacing thinking that Redline are going to be the strongest, and already in race one, they've been beaten. That is huge.
But at the same time, remember, 2 versus 3 in the final, they're always going to be on the back foot. Here's a look at your results of Heat 1. Jake Burden, 1.2 seconds clear. What a drive from the Australian with Chris Lullum, Enzo Benito, Patrick Coltsman, second through fourth. That's poor start for Benito. Might just now have to be something he looks to improve on and maybe practice before he's back out on track. Emily Jones in 5th with Kazuki Umeshima 6th. Marco Page, Isaac Gillison, Andre Martins, and Mika Hakimi through the top 10. We'll await confirmation from race control, but as it stands right now, 1 point between Burst and the Rocket Simsport duo that finished 11th and 13th. Daniel Handover and Luca Burke heading to our second chance race. We'll take a look at the rest of the results, but I think you're right. A statement there from Jake Burden. The question really now will be, Luke, how can he and his teammate work together to combat the trio of Redline?
Well, we're about to find out, aren't we? It's going to be a very interesting day. But the fact that, you know, we saw from our first iRacing event, which was for the World Cup, Redline just dominated all day, but they got to the final, and Apex were then able to peg them back because it was a 1v1 in terms of teams versus team. And Apex did not have a driver that was outright quicker than any of the Redline drivers. So the fact that Yassi have this now in their back pocket, thinking we started out very, very strong here, I think that is massive as we get towards the end of today.
Lewis, any big shots from your vantage point watching up from up high?
I mean, there was some drama early on. I'm actually kind of surprised that Burst were in as good a spot as they were, especially considering some of the earlier issues they had. I mean, we saw one of the cars backwards. One was also off at Paddock Hill on the very first lap, coming around the first corner. So there were quite a few issues for them. If they can get straight through, that is fantastic for Burst and shows that they actually are going fairly strong right now and carrying that momentum, of course, from the rFactor 2 event they had a couple of weeks ago where they got through into that final. But for me, I think the big shock was that it is how much speed that Yazhi and Veloce have, of course, both the same team and both working together. I wonder if they will work together more when it gets to the semi-finals. I mean, obviously they're sat there thinking, if we can get both teams into the final, that'd be great. And I don't think that's impossible because Redline weren't exactly blasting away from the Veloces either.
And maybe it gets to the semi-finals and Yassi takes a step back if Redline's on top and says, you know, Veloce's got 3 drivers, let's send them on through. Let's have a look at the teams that are lining up for heat number 2 because we're getting ready to go racing again. Quick fire action. You don't have to look away for long and look at our faces for very long, but it will be the Unicorns of Love, of course, the only other team to have won a final against Team Redline. Williams Esports always strong on iRacing. They've got Agustin Canapino joining them today. Big fan of Canapino, especially those who watch on RaceSpot TV will know just how much his Argentinian fans like to come out and cheer him on. Triton Racing have history on iRacing. However, they don't have their specialist in today. Team Fordzilla have the likes of Will Chadwick, RaceSpot's own Will Chadwick behind the wheel. Patrick Long Esports, virtual drivers by TX3. Simsa Esports have Ramez Azam and Gustas Grimbergus as part of their lineup. Very experienced iRacing competitors. And then the relative newcomers in E-Team Brit will make up heat number 2 here. We've already seen, Luke, that Unicorns of Love took a massive step forward in rFactor 2 2 weeks ago. Can they do the same here today?
Yes, they absolutely can. Do they have to? Probably not. I feel like in terms of their passage through to the Masters, they're going to be golden here. If they do take a massive step forward, I feel like that's huge in terms of where we go to the Masters, like that, the chances for them, the higher seed they get, you know, you're going to be facing the lower seed. So for instance, just to explain to people at home, if Team Redline were to be #1 seed and just, you know, hypothetically, it's not going to happen, but Unicorns of Love were 12th seed, it would be Redline versus Unicorns of Love. Then it's 2nd seed versus 11th, then it'll be 3rd seed versus 10th, and so on and so forth. So the higher the seed you are, the lesser the team you're going to come up against effectively. But ultimately, Unicorns of Love, if they have a bad day today, remember, we're on ACC for the Masters. So if they are one of the lower seeds going into the Masters, they could provide a huge shot by taking out one of the big dogs as well. So it's just the nature of the seeding.
Don't believe there's any points up for grabs in the Masters. It's just about the $10,000 that will pay out, but you're right, never count them out, especially given the speed. Confirmation of official Heat 1 results. Team Redline, Yasheet, Veloce, and Burst will go on through directly to our next stage of the competition. Rocket Simsport, Brabham Esports, Carbon Simsport, and the Mirror Esports teams all heading through to the second chance race in this final day of your Spring Cup. Lewis, Williams, I talked about their strength. I talked about Team Fordzilla. Although they're a bit disappointed they're not driving in a Ford, they've at least got a slightly more professional paint today than they had during the World Cup. But I do think Simpson might be one to watch for here.
I mean, at least, yeah, Fordzilla have tried this time, so that's a top-tier move. This one is potentially the most open heat that we have. We don't know who's going through, and I couldn't even make a prediction at this point. You two are going to have to talk us through it and see who's going to go through. Luke and Arjuna, take it away.
Can see the cars getting ready to grid themselves up again. It is a standing start, but no real supercar specialist. One thing to note, Jake Burden, 3 a.m. in the morning for him, Luke. Not an easy thing to be that alert and that quick and consistent when you're that sleep deprived.
Yeah, when you get given a home car advantage, it's easy to wake up, isn't it? Let's be honest. And he absolutely proved his worth there in that first race. And for me, is if you could beat drivers, and don't get me wrong, Enzo Benito had a poor race because he didn't get off the line well. He's obviously got the most pace in terms of raw pace. But yeah, Burton showed some super skills there in that race. And I'm going to throw this out there, Arjuna. There's an opportunity for drivers to improve a lot more with this car than the other two cars we have. The AMG Mercedes is just so widely used on ACC, right? And then you've got the, what we used in the Formula Pro, weren't we, last time out for rFactor, which is a widely used car in rFactor. The V8 car isn't as widely used, I would say, as the other two. So I feel like there's more room for improvement, and that's why we're going to get more surprises as well. Because drivers who made last time out in the World Cup, may have been the first time they'd ever really, you know, had a few practice sessions with the car and got in races. And now it's the second time, like they would have had a lot more, time on track. And you know, as someone who does sim race yourself, the more time you put on track, the more opportunities you get to improve.
I am a very much retired sim racer. I was just too good for the rest of the field. Here's a look at your starting grid for heat number 2. Martin Stefanko for Williams Esports on pole position alongside the Simsa Esports driver that I didn't mention. Watch out for Tony. I will eat my humble pie. Tobias Pfeffer, what a qualifying performance from him to line up inside of Rameza Zam, while Lucas D'Amelio and Michael Romanidis, former F1 Esports driver, share row 3. Sean Arnold, Jacob Charcot, 7th and 8th, with Gustas Grimbergers, the youngest ever winner of an ACO-sanctioned event, lining up inside of Will Chadwick to complete the top 10. We'll cycle through the rest of the names. Let's shout out Tobias Pfeffer for that qualifying performance from him, Luke, but he needs the rest of his team to perform. One driver down in 12th, the other in 16th.
Yeah, exactly that. It is about your team right now. You need 2 drivers to at least get up into sort of that top 12 range. If you're starting down at P16, you've got to be hoping for some shenanigans. I tell you what, big surprise here. Erhan Yayovsky, only P19.
Don't think he put a time on the board. Now, there is limited... Yeah, well, same for Augustin Canapino. A bit of a shock for me, given that Canapino doesn't have supercars experience in the real world, but does race in touring cars in his native Argentina. So that's something to note. He's also, by the way, if you like some history, raced in the 24 Hours of Daytona in the Daytona prototype class for Junkos Racing alongside Carl Kaiser, Rene Binder, and Will Owen. Just random factoids that I will be happy to throw down on you. Finished in 8th and then finished 10th at Sebring to back that one up. Have you ever tried to take these cars for a standing start, Luke, though?
Not on iRacing, but I have in other games, and I just know they're very, very tough to get off the line. as tough as it gets, if I'm being completely honest. So I can only imagine on iRacing it's even more difficult. Although the time model changed recently, which makes it a little bit easier. So yeah, I want to see how interesting it is for the camber on the inside of the corner. We saw Enzo Benito, one of the very best on iRacing, struggle to get the car off the line. Is it easier to be on the high side here than the low side? Is that going to be a factor today?
That's a good question, but we saw behind Benito some good starts for Lullum and some other cars on the inside, but a factor to think about is the engines are ready to rev, the lights are ready to come up. Heat 2 about to get underway from Brands Hatch in round 3 of your Spring Cup in the VCO Esports Racing League. We're underway, and the outside of the front row this time gets a horrific launch. Stefanko leads the way, though, down into turn 1. Good start from Roman Nidis as he works his way up into the top 4. Sean Arnold straight off into the kitty litter, straight off into the barrier as well. Not sure who that other car was that followed him wide at turn 1, but single file at the front of the field. Clean start from everyone else as the two Triton cars side by side.
Can't park there, Sean. Wow, that's going to be a parking fine. That was not ideal. That's a very clear. Someone was on his inside. A little bit of contact between the two of them, and you're a passenger if you're just braking ever so slightly late, or if you are indeed going slightly sideways. These cars, you need to be braking in a perfect straight line. There's not really the option to be braking as you're turning, especially for someone at my level. These drivers may be able to get away with it a little bit more, but it is just the technique in these cars is absolutely paramount in you getting a performance here. As we are again a little bit further down the grid, you can see that Unicorns of Love on the inside of Team Fortilla. Two of the better liveries on the grid, that's for sure. And the Unicorns of Love there, I'm not too sure who that is. It is actually Spork, is maybe leaning on their experience here a little bit, considering they've gone up there and won 2 events before. Did not push for that position, realizing that Fefa is currently in P3 and he's in P9, and that is very clever racing from that team.
Spork up 3 positions on the start, so a nice early phase of the race for him, as a bit of bumping and banging back in the pack. That's Pignataro along with Martin Buchan, who is your most experienced iRacing driver in terms of when they created their account. He's down in the 15,000s, and for those that know iRacing, that is a long time to have been a part of the circus that is the iRacing service. All 3 E-Team Brit cars back in the pack here as a lunge down the inside from D'Amelio, who was that other car that went wide at turn 1. Who's that that's gone wide this time around, locking the brakes, holding on to it? Was one of those E-Team Brit cars. It was Bradley Brockles, who has run himself all the way off the road and may have had some contact as well. That car is done. That car is toasted. Will need the tow back to pit lane.
Yeah, there's no fast repairs here, unfortunately. That is a game over, unfortunately, and it'll be a last chance for them, I think, by the looks of where the other 2 cars are in this as well. So not the best in terms of their weak start. Stefanko, by the way, still in the lead by 0.8 of a second already as 2 drivers here. That's Milniak and Sharkot. They are swapping positions here. I think they believe that Milniak's probably the faster of the 2. So he's been let through here as it stands. And we're going to get a cheeky little replay here of what we saw here. So through Paddock Hill Bend, and that happens. That just happens, I'm afraid. You get someone up your inside, you lose a bit of traction on the outside, and ultimately your rear will step out, and your front will start facing to the right. And if your car's on your inside, you're on the absolute limit of the weight transfer of the car. So the car on the inside cannot turn right, and ultimately it pit maneuvers from the opposite side of where you would normally see a pit maneuver. And yeah, both of them had that contact, ended up into the barrier, and yeah, it's just one of those corners where that is the nature of the corner.
3 wide on the run into turn 1. Unicorns of Love and Colin Spork back out of it, and the car that started in 2nd finds some footing to get back up into 9th as in front of him Milnek and Chadwick up the hill into Druids. Chadwick's got that inside line, had a decent run in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain here a couple of weeks ago. Grabs the position. Milnek will hold on from Runanen in that Simsa Esports V8 Supercars. A bit of bumping, a bit of banging. Currently comfortable, William Simsa, Triton, and the Unicorns of Love. How will that change out as Agustin Canapino? No qualifying lap time for him, but already inside the top 10.
Tell you what, Spork here needs to be letting that TX3 car go. Just let them go, don't get involved, just let them have that position. There's so much room behind them to work with. You just do not want to be, you've got a teammate in 3rd, he's done it. He's absolutely let that car go through here, and you'll see him, he'll get onto the brakes a lot earlier. That is clever. I'm really enjoying what I'm seeing from Spork here. He is very much, although there's a mistake though, he kind of doesn't want that to happen. He was genuinely given that position up there, but ultimately, as it stands, he's now got all that hard work to do again, although he's made it very easy for him now, hasn't he? Because Hubert has just absolutely driven off into the barrier. Spork's going to be loving life right now, plenty of room to maneuver, but he knows that his teammate's in 3rd position. That is not a good day though for that green car.
It was off to the grass, and the difference in grip spat him off into the wall, and the virtual drivers by TX3, another team with just 2 drivers in the field. That's a second chance look for them, as back up into the midst of the top 10 we go. Close between Azam and Pfeffer for second, but Stefanko is pulled away to the tune of about 9/10 of a second. Look how smooth, look how calm they are as they roll through Druids, and then a bit of opposite lock as they try and put down the power in these V8 supercars. Of course, a new generation of supercar incoming in the real world in 2023. Should be followed onto iRacing shortly after that as well. Some brilliant racing that we've seen in the V8 Supercars E-Series, both with the real world pros, but also with the sim pros, as it were. They have the combination racing as well, just like we see in the VCO Pro Sim Series, real and virtual combining once more. That Sims esports car really trying to find a move up, but same thing you were talking about with Spork. I don't think if you're Runanen, you can really get too feisty here. Penalty points, the very last thing that you want to be getting.
Yeah, Azam currently and Grimbergus currently are in P2 and P5, so realistically, put it in a wall here. If you're Tony, Runanen just needs to chuck it in the wall, not be involved in this race, let your team go through. But I do want to shout out, I'm not sure if he is a dad, but he looks like a dad. Shout out to all the dads out there. Us dads still can sim race, ladies and gentlemen. And that is, well, again, I don't know if he's a dad. He probably isn't a dad, but he looks like a dad. That's what I'm going on right now. But yeah, if I'm Runanen, I'm chucking this in a wall. I'm not getting involved. I don't want to be the reason why your team. He's still going for the moves here. You've got to respect it. But again, if you cause any contact, you force someone ever so slightly wide, you put yourself in a whole heap of trouble. Slightly behind here, not really got the overlap to work with in towards turn number 2. Still going to try and make something work here. But look at the Williams esports car also trying to come through. And there's contact then between Runanen and indeed, I'm not too sure who that was.
Canapino.
Okay, so there we go. So Canapino, they're getting involved. We'd love to see a replay of that and see whether it might be the Simsa at fault or the Williams car at fault. But if you're Runanen right now, park it. Don't get any more incidents to your name. Just park the car.
Yeah, hard racing, and we'll grab a look at your VCO replay right here as they worked off of Druids. Runanen just pushes wide, and I mean, Canapino's going as wide as he can, almost running into the grass. I'll put full blame on Simsa. Don't expect any penalty points for that one either way, so shouldn't really impact the result so far. Both Williams and the Simsa team are looking comfortable. This is up front, where Stefanko leads, again, still from Ramez Azam, but the gap is closed very slightly. A small mistake last time, this recent lap, excuse me, might just have closed that up. Pfeffer's being dropped into the clutches of Romanidis, with Grimbergus in the mix as well. We talked about this as well before we went on air, Luke, but this is a hard track to pass at, but it's an easy track to make a mistake at, and that's where opportunities will present themselves.
Yeah, 100%. You've just got to stay as close as you possibly can to the car in front of you and force them into a mistake. The best place to make a move is really setting someone up through Paddock Hill Bend, up in towards turn 2, up the hill, brake late as you possibly can, up the inside. But again, you've got to force that car in front of you a little bit wider through turn number 1. It's just such a unique corner. Hopefully we'll get an onboard of turn number 1 at some point during this, because it is, again, until you see it through the eyes of the driver, you don't realize quite how unique it is. But it just falls away from you, and then all of a sudden the car will grip, unless, as you would say, Arjuna, you're already in the kitty litter, so you've got to be really, really careful. Someone who hasn't got to be too careful here is Stefanko. He has done the job that was asked of him. He's got a sensational start off the line. That seems to be the key today as well. Make sure you get a good start. Simsa, they did not have a great start, but luckily they've managed to indeed consolidate themselves with that P3, and as it stands, P5. So 8 points, they're good. So Williams looking good, Simsa's looking good. Are all Williams drivers currently in the top? They're all in the top 9. So Sims are looking good. Unicorns of Love are looking good as the 3rd team. Team Fordzilla, they got Chadwick, they're currently in 7th, but I'm not trying to figure out who else it might be that would be going through here. I can't quite see the logo of Milniek and Canapino as the white flag comes out here.
Should be Williams, Simsa, Triton, and Unicorns of Love, if I am doing the math correctly. And it is white flag. You saw Barney really vigorously with that white flag out in the air. Not as stylish as RaceSpot's own Aaron Likens featured on the IndyCar website this past week. Aaron is commentated on the second most iRacing Indy 500s here on RaceSpot, as Patrick Long will have 4 penalty points for the lap 1 incident from what I understand. But Aaron Likens, second most Indy 500 broadcast as compared to even Will Vincent, your official flagman now for the NTT IndyCar Series. There you go. Those are the correct order of the 4 that will go on through. So that's easy for us now that we can have that live and in real time.
Yeah, that is magical. That just saves us having to do any maths during a race here. Not that Lewis has been much help during this, to be fair. But yeah, me and you, Arjuna, that's one less job for us to worry about.
More penalty points, and it's for Simsa. Oh, now, did Runanen get dinged for that incident with Canapino? Don't think that's going to affect the results when all things are said and done. Simsa should still be comfortably in front even of the Unicorns of Love. But drama, and it goes to what Luke was talking about earlier. Do you want to put yourself in a position to disturb the run through the day here? But Martin Stefanko beats his chest, wins in heat number 2. Former F1 Esports driver in this V8 supercar in front of Ramez Azam, Tobias Pfeffer, and his Williams Esports teammate of Michael Romanidis. Another good heat, bit more chaos, especially on the start here, Luke.
Yeah, it was a massive amount of chaos, to be fair, but it's to be expected. You've got, 10 minutes to get your best performance and get your best 2 drivers up against drivers that are all of the same ability around a circuit such as Brands Hatch. It is, a dog-eat-dog situation. It's simple as that. I do need to apologise to Lewis. I didn't have the commentary feed open, so he has been doing maths like he's Carol bloody Vorderman for me, so I apologise, Lewis, but yeah, that's my bad.
Don't apologize to Lewis. You got to throw him further under the bus. But Lewis was helping us out as we wait for the final stragglers to come across the line. There are your 2 E-Team Brit cars who will cycle their way on through. Let's have a look at your race results at this point in time. 7 laps, not long, 10-minute races. But Martin Stefanko victorious over Ramez Azam and Tobias Pfeffer. Michael Romanidis makes it 2 Williams Esports cars inside the top 5, with Gustav Grimbergers doing the same for Simsa Esports. Those 2 comfortable, as well as Triton Racing and Unicorns of Love. Could cycle through the rest of the names here. Fastest lap did go the way of Ramez Azam, so do watch out for them. Clearly do have some decent speed, even Tony Renanen in that 3rd of the Simsa cars with that penalty, put it on the outside of the front row. We are definitely seeing the difficulties that these drivers have getting off the line, and we'll bring back in Lewis McLeod before we get ready for heat number 3. Lewis, I mean, these drivers all knew what car we're in. They knew the difficulties of getting this car off the line. I'm a bit surprised that we've seen cars on the front row struggle so much.
Yeah, it's not even necessarily just the major difficulties of getting it off the line. Obviously, that's not what's causing the real issue. It's when you're going into turn 1. Paddock Hill is such a difficult corner. If you obviously have a slightly slower start, it drops you back into sort of 2, 3, 4 wide, sometimes even a couple more than that, to be perfectly honest. And with Paddock Hill, it's very, very bumpy. These cars are heavy. They've got a lot of power, and their brakes, to be quite honest, rubbish. And so to get it stopped, slowed down, and pulled into the apex is really, really difficult, and that's where you see the issues into turn 1. That is something which will get worse through the races. The second chance race, and of course when we get through into the quarterfinals, those races into turn 1 into Paddock Hill, they're going to be a nightmare, almost a lottery.
Let's have a look at your Heat 2 points, which are official from Race Control, so we can not dwell on this too much. Williams Esports, Simsa, Unicorns of Love, Triton as expected on through. Team Fordzilla might be a little bit disappointed what happened with Sean Arnold at the start of that race. E-Team Brit Virtual Drivers by TX3 and Patrick Long Esports through to the second chance. Now let's talk, though, about the teams on the grid for heat number 3, because this is where a lot more of your iRacing specialists are to be found, mixed in with those with a little less experience. RHG, BS Competition, Arnage, and Apex Racing Team would be your most experienced iRacing competitors, Lewis. Excuse me, Luke is who I wanted to really come and ask, but I don't think it's a slam dunk.
No, I think you've got to be looking at RHG and you've got to be looking at Apex. Those 2 teams this is their bread and butter, as simple as that. I think BS are going to be in trouble here. They've only got 2 drivers. Like, you have one mistake from one of the drivers, or as we've seen, it doesn't necessarily have to be the driver themselves. You could be in a whole heap of trouble. I think we could see a genuine surprise during this as well. So I think we might see for the first time someone like Butler Powell Motorsport. I think this is going to be a carnage-filled race. I think we could potentially see them for the first time go into the sort of quarterfinals, semi-final stages today.
Butler Powell, another team with just 2 drivers though as well. There are plenty of schedule overlaps and conflicts that are causing some issues for them. Let's look forward then to this Heat 3. I mean, again, it's a bit bigger. We got 23 cars on the grid, and I can tell you that Jamie Fluke, with qualifying already done, is going to be on pole position. Apex showed up strong, Lewis, last time we were on iRacing, but I think it's fair to say the Spring Cup has been somewhat torrid for them. Jamie Fluke not enjoying his rFactor experience, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, so far, Apex, unfortunately, of all of the teams, all 26 teams that we have in the ERL here in the Spring Cup, they are last on just 3 points. They are right at the bottom, and with the points they have, there is no chance, not even if everything went perfectly, even if they won and somehow no one else scored any points, they are out. They are not taking part in the Masters, which is a bit of a shame. But there are a few teams in this which are important for that Masters battle, with the likes of Rocket Simsports. I brought them up earlier about how they were in a tight battle for that final transfer spot, that final 12th place position to get into the Masters. They're in quite a close battle with the likes of Jean Lacey Esports Academy. Well, Jean Lacey Esports Academy in this, and they already know that Rocket are going into the second chance, the final chance race. So it's quite important for them to try and sneak their way through into the quarterfinals straight away.
Yeah, just looking at that, even Team Fordzilla, 29 points tied with John Lacey. They're going through to the second chance. Patrick Long Esports as well, 26. Luke, you kind of said before that maybe 33 is the magic number to go through, and teams above that, Triton and above, are somewhat comfortable, I think. But Arnage should be strong here today. We saw them with some good pace last time on iRacing. Yassi looking very good as well. So I think we really are fighting for the final 2 spots in the Masters.
Yeah, I think Simsa look good today as well. Let's be honest, like whether or not they're going to get enough points to get to the Masters here. I think today specifically we're looking at, especially the semi-final sort of stage, we're going to be in for an absolute cracker. I feel like we could almost guarantee who's going to, at least one of the teams who are going to go through at each stage when we've got to the semi-finals. I just don't think that will be the case today. I feel like there's a couple of drivers who've really improved dramatically. Drivers specifically who may have come from another sim and just really taken to this car specifically like a duck to water. So yeah, I'm excited for the rest of the day. But you just alluded to the fact that Jean Lacey are going to be under a little bit of pressure because Rocket have already guaranteed themselves a position in through to the next phase. The draw in this competition is also huge, isn't it? Like the pressure it could put on if you're in the third race, especially at this stage of the competition where you do need all of those points. But anyway, I'm going to stop talking. Arjuna, I'll let you take us through the grid.
Yeah, here's a look. The nicest man in all of sim racing, Jamie Fluke, punches his ticket to pole position in front of the Hungarian David Toth. Martin van Lozenoord inside of Ricardo Rico, so looking good for the pink, white and black, with Yaltine for BS competition inside of Johan Hart, your 2020 iRacing Rallycross World Champion. Mr. Brioche, Mr. LMP2 joins us today. The man that likes to jam to some cat jam inside of the Absolute Motorsport Assetto Racing leader in Tommaso Mosca, Jimmy Antunes and Gregor Schill through the top 10. Legions of racers and Jean Lacey Esports Academy just behind them. Will cycle through the rest of the grid because we've only got 40 seconds to get there. But Arnage looking good, Apex looking good. Where are the backup for RAG here?
Well, Yovsky down in 21st. Hold on, wasn't he in the last grid we had? I don't know what's going on here right now. Yeah, it's not looking overly good for RAG, which is quite the surprise. But I'm sure that they'll find a way of getting something done.
I think what likely happened is Yayovsky joined the wrong session, and by the time he figured out which one he was meant to be in, well, qualifying was already done. No lap time on the board for that second RAG car. Amir Hosseini, not racing today because of a conflict for him, so just 2 for RAG. What can they do as Heat 3 is ready to get underway once more? The engines build themselves up. The tension rises as well, and Heat 3 is green here at Brands Hatch. Light flashing already from Maxime Briand. A little bit of smoke behind his car, struggled to get off the line. Great start from David Toth to hold on to second, and Ricardo Rico's got himself up into third. Good start from Tyne, but the Apex Racing team duo behind Jamie Fluke struggling a little bit as now Van Lozenoord alongside with Har.
Yeah, Van Lozenoord just has to, he's kind of been the backup. Oh, big off there for Fadli Rashmat, and that's caused carnage with a couple of other cars as well with the rejoins. Unfortunately here, Connery's going to be absolutely furious with that's for sure. But yeah, Lozenoord's been kind of the backup driver, hasn't he, through the rFactor 2, but today he's going to be leaned on as the main driver because it's iRacing. And, you know, they did really, really well at the World Cup in iRacing, but it was only because he was exceptional. he needs to be exceptional today again by the looks of things, because he's got nobody from his team anywhere near him.
Jimmy and Tunes going aggressive to look past Tomasa Mosca, who went onto the grass, running themselves down the Cooper straight in towards Surtees, but they hold on there. Again, left side, look for the team logos. Where are the cars positioned? Hearth battling with Van Lozenoord. Those two have history with one another, so do watch out for that. Johan Hearth might have cost Van Lozenoord a chance at being a world champion just last year in 2021. Arnage, Apex in the mix, BS may be there as well. That 14 really is the question. And as it stands right now, I don't think Yoski's doing enough to really back up that performance. He's already up to 13th, though, we'll be right on board with Antunes.
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on here. It is Apex, it is Arnage, and it's 100% going to be BS as it stands. Lozenoord, 5 points currently, but he has nobody backing him up there. But is there any other team really with 2 drivers around? No, there isn't. There just really isn't. This is, yeah, it could be someone, this could be like the biggest amount of points for someone to qualify we've ever had.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I mean, traditionally, what's that number been that we're looking at, Luke? I mean, 25 is usually comfortably safe.
Yeah, so in the World Cup, it was a little bit different because we had a few more teams in the race, because we only had 2 heats, right? Whereas we have 3 heats now, we split it into 3. So it was around about 22. 21, 22 was what we were saying was the cut off. But at this stage here, I think you're going to be comfortably through with that. I think you could probably go as far as maybe 23, and you're going to be going through here. So right now, Lozenoord is in P5, and he realistically needs someone to be running at least 18th. And as it stands, he does not have someone running in 18th.
Yoski's up to 13th though right now, so I think they're okay.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, okay, no, that's fine then.
I was trying to do the math in my head. I was like, wait, where's Yoski? There he is. Oh, there's Van Lozenoord, excuse me. He was up and into the top 5, of course. Toth and Rico sit 2nd and 3rd for Arnage. Good day for them. Again, Rico showed some great speed in the World Cup, but then got taken out, and again, some misfortune going his way, mistakes as well, dropped him out of the contention as up the hill in towards Druids they come once more. The top 3 scampering away, that BS competition car starting to come under fire. And if you're Van Lozenoord, you've got to be somewhat conservative, but you've also got to be somewhat aggressive because you don't want to lose too many spots given the position Yoski's in. Here's a look at a replay of what happened on turn 1. So I think Schlacker gets mixed up in that one. We saw what happened to the Legions of Racers car as well. And there's Andrea Dalla Valle at 3 cars all around in through Druids.
Yeah, that looked fun, didn't it? Looked like they've got a little bit too close for comfort there. It's just the nature of this circuit. I'm going to go as far as saying I don't think anyone did anything crazily wrong there. Maybe the stewards will see it from multiple different angles and see something a little bit more wrong there. But as you can see here, Lozenoord, who will be sick of the sight of Apex team over the last 12 months, and he ultimately is now just being duped by both of them. So Lozenoord just keeping out of the way, but excuse me, they had about 6 points to play with there, going on Lewis's mass, RHG on 18, and Absolute will be on 24 as it stands. So Lozenoord probably just let that happen here. 2 spots, you know, they've still got now, what, 4 points to play with? Again, they'll have someone in their ear telling them exactly what they need to do. So I don't think that was the worst decision in the world there. Very similarly to UOL in the previous race where Spork was just letting people go past. I'm good to go. I just want to get through to the next stage. I think we're seeing that the same here from RHG.
No CAD jam right now from Maxime Briant. I'm a little bit disappointed. Should be noted. Oh, there we go. There we go. He's rocking. He's grooving. Should be noted, right? But we talk all the while about these big teams and the resources that they've got behind the scenes that pushes them forward maybe a little bit more. The ability to have people talking in their ears saying, relax, let them go. We're still good on points. Because RHG are people competing in the SRO Esports event, that attention is going to be a little bit more split. It might rely a little bit more on the drivers to have an overall sense of where the race is and how it's playing out.
Yeah, and that would have been music to the ears of Lozenoord if he is being told this, because Johan Hearth, well, if you've been following the Dallara IR 01 World Championships, which were later last year, you know that Johan Hearth and Lozenoord have previous. And by previous, they have multiple previous. It's a long story chapter. Yeah, it's probably longer than the Bible at this point between those two. So yeah, let them go. Just don't get involved with it. Maybe later on you can get your own back right. As you can see there, Lozenoord with his tats there. Beautiful looking man he is. Currently P7, and he's being backed up by Yayovsky. He's already up to P11 actually. He's gained so he lost 2 spots, did Lozenoord. Yayovsky's gained 2, so they're actually now in the same position. They've got 6 points to Absolute effectively in this race in their net points, so they're going to be golden to go through. Again, I'm going to give a shout out to a specific driver, Jamie Fluke, who we didn't really know what to expect from him when it came to the our World Cup on iRacing. We knew he'd be there or thereabouts, but he was absolutely sensational, and his form is still absolutely sensational as it comes. More of a content creator these days, but as you can see, still has some unreal pace. Leads out here, they're ahead of the two Arnage competition drivers.
I think Jamie might take exception to you calling him a content creator, because he now lives full-time in the Apex Racing Team facility and is focusing a lot more on his sim racing. Went full-time, I think, at the end of 2020 when we had a chat with him at RaceBot TV as part of our Talking Tents podcast. But, you know, this house thing is a new thing that Coanda started. Redline wants to do as well. Altus, we saw them during the World Cup. They've been displaying the build process of their houses. They've just gotten some new seats in, which I have no doubt have. There you can see on board as well with Jamie Fluke inside that Apex Team facility. As we always say, a bit disappointing he doesn't have his wall of track maps behind him. Balish Esports with 4 penalty points for them. They weren't looking like they were going to go through, but that just puts the nail in the coffin for them. Across the line this time again will be 2 laps to go, with the lap time here being about 1:25. We got close with Jake Burden, and we're close this time again, but I think it is 2 to go this time around.
Balish Esports with some penalty points. That's a new one. Yeah, well, to be fair, the whole Jamie Fluke thing is he's just doing more content creation, on which I just assumed he was taking more of a step back from the sim racing, but hearing that, seems like he's trying to do both, which is great. These houses where people live together, it must be an age thing here. I could not imagine anything worse than living with a group of guys like that. Just not for me, I'm afraid. But I guess in competition, when you can do 8 hours a day with people of a similar ability, you're only going to get faster and faster, right? And you're always sharing that same mindset, so it does definitely make sense if you want to become one of the best sim racers in the world.
And I think, you know, kind of part of that is when Coanda first did their house, I wasn't a fan either, but I thought more because, you know, they had the famous purple room, but that was basically on premises. There was really minimal separation between where you race and where you live. Apex, for example, where these guys do their competition from, is a separate facility. Yes, it's just a 30-second walk away from where the apartments that they're living in, but there's at least a little bit of separation. Coanda's done the same as well with their huge esports facility hub that they built now, which we saw during the virtual Le Mans, for example. It's so big they were able to wheel in a Porsche 911 RSR decked out in the livery that they were competing in. So I like that separation. I just wonder how much laundry actually gets done. How often are they cleaning their sheets? As white flag is out, final lap of the race.
Yeah, that's a good conversation for another day. That's something I'm not interested in the slightest. But yeah, Jamie Fluke doing a sensational job, still leading out. Toff and Rico, are they going to be pushing for a win? Absolutely not. Also, something to mention, the most valuable driver. This will be Toff and Rico's first podiums, I think, of the competition.
Yes.
Jamie Fluke is his first race here, so it'll be the first of the Spring Cup, but ultimately, we know that he managed to get a couple of podiums when we were in the World Cup. So yeah, it's going to be tough for these drivers who are only doing one duty, isn't it, to be honest?
Don't forget, Jamie Fluke did do rFactor, but to quote Jamie Fluke, he got rFactored.
Oh, what does rFactored mean?
He found out the joys of having a car inside of you.
Oh, that sounds far too kinky for a Wednesday afternoon for me. But yeah, here we are. Coming up towards the end of this race then, it's looking, again, very good for Apex. It's looking great for Arnage. It's looking pretty good, again, for BS competition. They're all good, and R8G are going to be the 4 that go through. Then you've got Absolute and John Lacey. They're going to be heading towards that last chance qualifier race, which nobody wants to be in. It's the biggest grid of the day, but it's the least amount of teams that go through. It's only 2 teams that make it through. As we come around the final corner, Fluke leads the way.
And look at him. He's calm, cool, collected, talking to his teammates. No beating of the chest from Jamie Fluke. He knows the business is still at hand. He wins in heat number 3 with the Arnage duo of David Toth and Ricardo Rico tailing him all the way to the line. Real Time backs up the qualifying performance with a 4th spot finish for him, while the Apex Racing Team duo of Johan Harth and Mr. Brioche through the top 6. Martin van Lozenoord, backed up by Erhan Yujovski, started outside of the top 20, but makes his way into the top 10 to advance as the 4 teams going on through. Again, Flagman busy. All the cars still yet to come across the line. Another action-packed race. We're still waiting for the big mistakes, but I think if you're basing your expectations of what our finals are going to be on by the type of racing that we've seen so far, don't, because you get just 6 drivers out there one-on-one with the teams, we know the intensity rises. We know the tempers tend to flare. Here's a look at your results then. Jamie Fluke victorious by just half a second, closest margin that we've seen so far today, with David Toth, Ricardo Rico completing the podium positions. Yaltine, Johan Health, Maxime Brient through the top 6. Apex, Arnage, BS, and RAG all having 2 drivers inside of the top 10. In fact, not for BS competition, excuse me. Gregor Schill being down in 11th after Yoski bumped him down, but still all 4 teams having good finishes there, and they'll work their way through. It's already been confirmed by race control. Fastest lap, Ricardo Rico. Again, the car in 2nd spot with the fastest lap on lap number 2. We'll bring back in Lewis McLeod as we get set for our second chance race, where, as Luke mentioned, it's going to be chaos. It's going to be frenetic. What did we see here? I mean, more chaos on lap number 1, this time at least not in turn number 1, but Druids is such a difficult corner to go 2-3 wide. Not always unexpected to have a little bit of carnage there.
It's kind of one of those things that we'll see quite a lot when risks are to be taken a bit later on as well, because that move into Druids is such a difficult circuit to overtake. You know, when you account for moves like into Hawthorns, Paddock Hill, they're really like the major ones. But that hairpin dive, if you get Paddock Hill just right when you're sat behind someone, that sets you up so beautifully to get to the inside for Druids. And we'll see people doing that a lot more, particularly in the next 2 races, obviously with the amount of risk you need to take. And then when we get to the finals, I think we'll actually see it quite as much in the semis. But it's kind of one of those risk versus reward kind of moves. It is very risky, but it's the one where you have the most control to sort of pry the door open. So, yeah, it's to be expected. That's racing around brands. That's what people voted for, I'll have you know.
Sonoma would have been great though, Luke. I know both of us are disappointed.
Yeah, I would have loved Sonoma. I think, especially turn 2. Turn 2 would have been an absolute cluster, which I'm quite enjoying. I would have seen cars rolling, I would imagine. But yeah, Brands Hatch is a classic circuit. I'm sure the people watching at home are very happy with it as well, and it will bring its fair share of action.
Well, we're going to grab a chat with your winners in just a moment's time. We've already got Jake Burden and Martin Stefanko standing by. We're just dialing up Jamie Fluke off that victory in heat number 3. Standing starts, Lewis. Let's talk about this again, because at least this time at the front it was a little bit better. It was at the back where cars were sideways and plenty of smoke was being thrown up into the air.
But this is the I don't really know what's the most polite way of talking about it, but we know that those that are down the field, it's not that they are bad teams, it's just comparatively to the teams up at the front, where they are the iRacing specialist teams. They're the ones that are more used to how to start on this platform and how to get going. It is kind of expected that those further down will kind of struggle with it more. The thing is though, once we get into those quarters and semis, that's an issue which we won't see really in those, because you're talking the top 4 teams from each of the heats plus the top 2 from the second chance race. These are the quality teams moving through,
or the ones that survived the chaos. But someone who knows a fair deal about starting a V8 supercar is Jake Burden, who joins us now after his victory in heat number 1. Jake, delighted to have you as a part of this Esports Racing League. Good qualifying for you, good start, and from there never really had to fight too hard.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. I think I was lucky that Enzo didn't get such a good start. I sort of tanked my qualifying because I only got 1 decent run at it, and obviously those Redline guys, especially in terms of 1 lap pace, you're always going to find that first. So, you know, they're not as experienced in these cars, but they're the best in the world. So I was really impressed with that quali speed, but it was just a matter of getting in front. Pretty tight track, so I just had to defend the first few laps, and then we were all right.
Well, first of all, congratulations, mate. A superb performance. And I do want to just mention about qualifying. Is it the first lap or the second lap where you can really maximize your time? You know, how important is it to get that banker time in, but can you improve on that second lap?
Typically not in this car. The tyre just goes off too quickly. It's got probably a good lap in it, sometimes less, to be honest. If you drive it too hard, you can kill it too early. So yeah, I wanted to reset and have another go, but I just didn't have the time because I was late in the queue. So I just sort of laid down a banker, and it was enough for the front row, fortunately, and that's why I say I was pretty lucky that Enzo got an average start, I think.
Well, congratulations, Jake. Just 2 drivers for you guys, so if you make it through to the final, it's an uphill task that you're looking at, but started this day off on the right foot. Let's work our way then to Heat 2 on our winner there, Martin Stefanko, who, while we usually see him in an open-wheel car or even in a slightly more hybrid sort of a like a machine, did pretty well in this V8 Supercars. Martin, what's this car been like for you and trying to adapt to the new challenge?
Hello guys. Well, for me it's been actually pretty good because, you know, I enjoy iRacing a lot. I think the way you need to drive the cars on iRacing suits my driving style a lot. So, and with this car, it's like that 200%. So yeah, for me, I actually got up to pace pretty quickly, and yeah, I was quite surprised that I got pole. I didn't expect that. I thought actually the lap felt slow. But that's the way it always feels like with this car. Like the slower you drive or the more careful you are, the faster the lap is. So yeah, I was quite surprised. And then obviously the start was quite good. I know sort of how to start. So yeah, I managed to keep the lead. And then it was just about, you know, not making any mistakes. I knew I had the pace, and I knew that unless I don't make a mistake, that nobody is going to pass me. So it was all about not making any mistakes, and I didn't really even push too hard. It was just about keeping the first place and getting ourselves into the quarterfinals.
Well, again, a sensational individual performance, and I will say to people watching at home, you are one of those drivers that are just good at every sim you turn your hand to. It's very rare these days. It used to be much more the same sort of drivers on every sim maybe 10 years ago, but it just isn't easy to do anymore. I would say that your performance was incredible, but the level of Heat 2 was probably the weakest out of the three. Where do you think you're going to stack up when it comes to the quarterfinals, semi-finals and beyond?
It's tough to say. I have to agree that Heat 2 was probably the weakest. But I think we're not too far off of the best teams like Redline, Apex, and so on, maybe Pretense. So it's not too bad. I think we can get a good result. I think we have the potential to get into the semifinals, and if we get into the semifinals and we have a clean race there, then I think we can get quite a nice result.
Congratulations, Martin, and best of luck for the rest of the day. But he mentioned the Apex Racing team, and we're now joined by, as we say, the nicest man in all of sim racing, although he doesn't have any tracks behind him, so maybe dampens the mood a little bit. There you see the shake of the head. Jamie, I mean, let's talk about what happened last time you were in this Esports Racing League. You got rFactored, as you put it. You must be quite happy to be back on home soil.
Yeah, truthfully, I'm quite happy to be back on home soil. I would call this a home track as well, Brands Hatch as well, but I've never actually went particularly well here before, so I'm just, yeah, happy just to get the points on the board, get us through finally into a quarterfinal, and yeah, we'll see where we can go from there.
Again, congratulations, superb performance once again, as we're coming to expect from you with this car. Obviously, you made it to the final against Redline when it came to the World Cup. With this car, we were at Okayama, I believe, then. Do you feel like it's going to be harder to reach a final this time, or maybe a little bit easier?
Good question. I'm not sure. I think it's probably going to be harder. Guys who probably didn't have the experience in the car for ERWC, I've got a little bit more of a feel for it now, so the competition is just going to be that little bit tougher. Not that I have too much experience in the car myself, but with my iRacing experience, that kind of can translate to most cars. So it's definitely going to be a very tough one. But you know, we've got a strong group with us this time, and yeah, I think our speed looks pretty solid. So as long as we don't make any mistakes and don't have anything nasty happen to us, I think we're in with a reasonable shot.
Let's see if you guys can make it to the final, especially now that you've got Mr. Brioche with you as well. Congratulations, Jamie. Best of luck for the rest of the day.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
And we'll bring back in Lewis McClade. Lewis, I mean, good to chat with those drivers, of course. Now, looking forward to that second chance. Again, the most chaotic, the most frenetic, and just 2 will advance. There's plenty of teams that have plenty to fight for, with the top 12 going through to the Masters in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, and again, it's for some of the teams that maybe have struggled a little bit more but are still up in that top spot. It's important for them to still get a good race in. As we say, this is the first race where you actually score points in the championship. Your finishing position in this is the finishing position for the event. So if you are last as a team in this event, you have the highest amount of points, then you are last on the event. You've kind of got to get up there. If you can't get into that top 2 teams, that's okay. try and get yourself somewhere in sort of, like the third team or the fourth team. So at least you're scoring decent points and securing yourself that position. This is where, like I say, that battle between the likes of John Lacey Esports Academy and Rocket Sim Sport, as well as a couple of other teams that might snatch their way through. This is where they can really make the difference, and that's why these races are so interesting, if a bit chaotic.
I'll remind you just before we go and watch qualifying for the second chance race that if you're enjoying what you're seeing today, it's a busy week for VCO Esports, with this weekend seeing the first of your VCO Grand Slams, an iRacing special event with physical prizes, commentary with RaceSpot TV and Radio Show Limited, and if you're watching on Twitch, the opportunity to win 50 iRacing credits. So hit that follow button and make sure that this Saturday you are along for the ride where iRacing have very kindly given us those credits. For now though, let's go to the second chance race where Lewis and Luke will take you through the action.
Well, this is it then, the last time for some of these teams throughout the day. Also, congratulations then, I am going to point it out to our junior and his camera. That is a top tier move. Luke, we love this race, don't we? It's just so on edge. 14 teams and just 2 go through.
Yeah, this is like the biggest grid, but it's the most jeopardy. So only 2 drive. I have a second chance. It should be last chance qualifier.
Love the last chance.
And then flames coming out, and then you got Thanos with his glove and clicking his fingers, and cars disappearing. And I don't know. I get too excited. But yeah, only 2 teams go through. Like, you know, this is yeah, it's. There'll be certain people out there who'll be like, oh, it's just another chance for really quick drivers to get a podium for the MVD. Yeah, that's not what they're worried about. It is all about absolutely just getting your safe passage through, and it's just not a very safe race to be in.
Well, no, I mean, there are quite a few drivers that have won this race that then didn't progress. I mean, most notably when we did the ERWC, Niels Nyox, when he was racing for the BMW, well, it wasn't BMW that day, because obviously we were driving in Mercs, but the G2 esports team, when he was racing for them, obviously before he jumped over to BS, or maybe it was BS, I can't remember, a long time ago, he won the race. And the thing was that he won the race, and then his team weren't there to back him up. They didn't continue. It is likely that we will see the winner of this race still not proceed. I'll run quickly through the teams whilst we are in qualifying and don't have very long. Rocket Sim Sports, Brabham, Carbon, Mirror, obviously you can see those up there in 4th and 6th now, well with Team Fordzilla, E-Team Brit, Virtual Drivers by TX3, Patrick Long Esports, deep breath, Absolute, John Lacey Esports Academy, Legion of Racers, Butler, Powell Motorsports and Ballas Esports, your teams within this race. And as we've said, only 2 can go through. Consistency is king, and getting a good qualifying is going to be critical.
Yeah, Burton's already told us that, you know, first lap really is all you can kind of do. So you're looking at here Sean Arnold, who had an awful race in terms of his heat races and parking it into a wall merely meters away from the start finish line. He's currently the fastest out there. He's currently 3/10 clear of, oh no, sorry, he's not 3/10 clear at all. He's half a tenth clear there of D'Amelio. And you know that if you are ahead of D'Amelio, you are absolutely going to get a good qualifying position. That is a good time there from Arnold, and it's one of the quicker times we've seen today.
Yeah, of course, conditions obviously not locked through the session, so we might see the track cooling, warming. So we did see that at Okayama. But still, either way, a 25.248 is a fantastic time. And Team Fordzilla, they'll be one of those teams that's a little bit disappointed. You said before, I mean, Sean Arnold was sent off pretty quickly in the race, lasted up until Paddock Hill before he joined the barrier. And so, for his point of view, they are in kind of, I'd say, a good spot. You're in the second chance race, so it's kind of a bit rough anyway. But they're in a strong spot mentally, in a sense of they know they are a fast team. When you look at them currently running in 1st and 5th, Team Fordzilla, this is a really, really good spot. I mean, how many other teams up there can you see 2 of? You've got Carbon, as Jean Lacey Esports Academy. Creepy goes up into 2nd position. You've got Jean Lacey Esports Academy that have got 2nd and 13th. You've got Carbon, who have got 4th and 9th. Outside of that, there's not too many teams up there.
Yeah, Carbon, you really don't expect too much on ACC, and you really don't expect too much on rFactor 2. But when it comes to iRacing, you just expect something a little bit extra from Carbon, and they're proving it right now in this second chance race. And right now, it is them and Fordzilla, I would say, are the 2 teams to watch out for. As Blotto just pops it into P9, that's for Sean Lacey Esports. So now that puts them 2nd and 9th. So yeah, a 3-team battle as it stands, and times are going to tumble. They will be able to finish their lap. Now the checker flag has indeed flown here. And well, I can hear Lewis doing very sensual noises there. Some excitement. Ooh, Lewis. Almost like there's more seagulls flying out.
Unfortunately, not here. We're a bit too far away from the seaside, but it is Mosca who's jumped up onto pole position, a 25.170 for Absolute. His closest teammate is down in 15th spot, so not great, but still well done to jump up onto that pole position. They are obviously allowed to finish off their final lap, being an open qualifying session. Chadwick's the next one across the line for Fordzilla to try and improve, and does he do so? No? Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Wow. Okay, that's not just
that is a lap.
That is pole position, ladies and gentle cars. It's the first 24 in a day, I think, actually, if I'm going to be honest. Well, maybe we have seen 24s before, but we definitely haven't seen them in a race. But in qualifying, that is a sensational time. I do want to see Arnold's car, and I'm wondering if Fordzilla have actually gone for different coloured rims on their cars, so we can tell the drivers apart, because not a lot of teams have held us out here really with the liveries. They're all just the same livery and you've got to try and find a number on them, but I think Fordzilla might have helped us out here with the old rims of their car.
If they have, they've gone from being the worst livery on the grid in the ERWC iRacing event to very much the best, because that is a top tier move. Although I do remember the first day of the ERWC when we had Redline all in different colours. Either way, the grid on your screen right now, great for Fordzilla, first and third. William Chadwick and Sean Arnold in that first and third. Mosca, though, alongside on the front row of the grid for the Absolute Motorsports team. Mattia Krupi, a decent qualifying session for the John Lacey Esports Academy, alongside on that second row of the grid with Luca D'Amelio and the Carbon Sim Sports car of Matuszewski on that sixth position. Behind that, Andika Rama Molana for Legion of Racers, and then Rocket Sim Sports. They did well in the first heat, but looking a little bit more slow within this session. Just 8th position for Handover, and his teammate Luca Burke's a fair way behind. Virtual Drivers by TX3, Mirror Esports in 9th and 10th, with Mattia Blotto for the Jean Lacey Esports Academy. Got to work a little bit more to go and assist his teammate with the second of the Carbon Sim Sports car, rolling off in that 12th spot. Behind that, we've got the Brabham, then a Legion of Racers, and then another one of those Absolute Motorsports. That's a bit of a shame for them to be this far back, despite where their teammate Mosca is up the grid. Team Ballast Esports, another Brabham, and then Jean Lacey Esports Academy, Jordi's Veers, a bit down the order, definitely an rFactor 2 specialist, so struggling along here on iRacing. Another Legion of Racers with Fadli Rakhmat, and then Rocket Sim Sports Enslin starts from the inside the top 20 with Roberto Pignataro and Zoltan Suti for Mirror Esports. BPM lock out row number 12 with Aidan Brow and then Stefan Schlacker down in 23rd and 24th. The final positions on the grid, Patrick Long Esports, and then Italy, fantastic, obviously another one of the Absolute cars, then Brabham Esports, and then the 2 E-Team Brit start from the final 2 positions on the grid. Who's going through here? I'll give you 30 seconds.
Fordzilla and oh god, second team. I have no idea. Yeah, it's Fordzilla and another team. The team that doesn't get involved in any incidents. There you go.
I cannot tell you who that second team is going to be. There's a few up there. The likes of John Lacey Esports Academy, the likes of Rocket, the likes of Absolute, all with chances to go through and potentially join Team Fordzilla. But hey, who knows what will happen to Team Fordzilla? They've already had drama on that run into Turn 1. Yet another standing start for the most cars we've seen all day. 33 from front to back here at Brands Hatch as we get ready to go underway in the Spring Cup finale, round number 3 here on iRacing. We are underway in the second chance race. Both of the Fordzillas get off to a decent start, not brilliant, but average so. Mosca's alongside going into Turn 1, trying to hang on to second position. Issues already for Legion of Racers, and I believe one of the Patrick Long Esports cars. Issues coming through Paddock Hill. That is no surprise. It is still the lead, though, for William Chadwick over Mosca, over Sean Arnold. Brabham into the mix in the background. That is pretty much what we were expecting, though, from that mid-pack. It is chaotic with 33 cars, and the mid-pack is always carnage.
Yeah, I saw the Patrick Long car. I can see it a mile off. They had the left wheels on the grass going into the braking zone. That doesn't happen. You can't do that on any racing game, especially iRacing. It's like an ice rink out there, but you cannot get away with that. Again, hopefully we get to see a replay of how that went down into Turn 1, but I think that might be exactly how it indeed went down. Fordzilla looking absolutely golden here. What about Carbon? I think Carbon might be 4th and 7th. Here, Carbon might be in a good spot. I think they are.
No,
that might be a TX3. Yeah, they've got such similar liveries. I mean, it's like inverted liveries.
No. They are. Yes, he is in 8th position. They are 4th and 8th. So
there you go.
You were right. Oh, Carbon.
Yeah, I was wrong, but I was right.
You were wrong, but right. I
we'll
like
take
that
it.
carbon livery, by the way. They've removed the purple and it's black, green, and this sort of chrome. I think it looks fantastic. Look at
That
that.
would be a reason why they're in the positions they're in. Simple as that. It's all about the liveries, ladies and gentlemen. Fordzilla, of course, helping us out with the different colour rims on the car, which is, again, very thankful for. And I think they might have done the wing mirrors as well, actually, different. No, they haven't.
No.
Wishful thinking, sorry.
Teasing us.
See, what they could do, again, I don't know why we're on livery watch here, but we'll get a replay. You can do a replay, Lewis.
Well, let's just take a look over the race start. So leaders came through nicely. Bad starts in the mid-pack, and Andika Rama was sent off by one of the paddock dogs. Kind of hard to tell exactly what happened. There was a bit of braking on the grass going down into Paddock Hill from one of the E-Team Brit cars. And then as you can kind of see, everything getting quite tight up to this point. There's the, as you were saying, Patrick Long, 2 wheels onto the grass on the braking zone going into Druid. There was already chaos happening, but you're not exactly going to help when you're 2 wheels on the grass in a very tricky braking zone in a car which, let's be honest, isn't really a fan of grass, not that many race cars particularly are.
No, I think that is a lot of baby V8 supercars being born in 9 months' time, so congratulations to all the parents out there. But yeah, talking about the Fordzilla livery here, what they could do is the wing mirrors, they could change colour, but then the corner, where it's red, they could be different colours on the front of the car. I just wishful thinking here.
Yeah.
You know, I won't charge any commission for that there, ladies and gentlemen, that's fine, but let's not worry about the livery right now. The performance is all that matters. Chadwick leading the way with Arnold now down in 3rd position. It's brilliant from them. Arnold under a bit of pressure from Maciejewski here. Maciejewski under as much pressure from Handover. And actually, there's a mistake. Who's just run wide there? Hello, who went off? I'm sure someone went off there. It might be in the Carbon Simsport car there, to be fair. But it looked like they were going to go right off into the old gravel on the outside of turn number 1. It didn't quite work out like that. The camera angle completely fooled me there. But yeah, as it stands, Fordzilla looking really, really good. And I think Carbon are really the team to beat here. Is there anyone else? Anyone else? I tell you what, got to be looking here at Mosca and Michelli. They're currently residing with 15 points. What Carbon on right now? 12. A couple of points gained there. They could be looking to get through here as well.
Well, let's see what happened to Stefan Slacker. There's the, that was a solo one. And caught up Enslin as well, coming through the final corner. Just lost it on that grass. It's so easy to do. There is another team, by the way, to look at, as we're just seeing just drama down the hill, just outside of the top 15. We're on board with Family Rackmat, who's already had issues. No rear wing on the Absolute car. That's very hard to tell directly ahead of him. So gets around the outside of the virtual drivers by TX3 man, and well, that's going to be fought back straight away. The other team I want you to focus on, though, is John Lacey Esports Academy. Mattia Krupi in 6th position and Jordi Spears running in 10th. So 16 points between them, whilst it is, oh my goodness, never mind. Whilst it is Carbon who are scoring very well here and looking at the second team, this is not looking good towards the back. And this is the thing that we've said about time and time again. There was a Carbon car in there. Now, if they are at fault, it is going to cost the Carbon team points, regardless of their spot. And with 4th and 8th, they've got 12 points. And between the Jean Lacey Esports Academy, they've got 16. And we know they're quite harsh with some of these penalties. If they do get a fair amount of penalty points, that could be the thing that drops them out as Mattia Blotto drops a position.
Yeah, I don't know. I get iffy about this because they had contact through one corner, and then it's kind of like, look, you've had contact, sort it out, and then they're still banging doors into the next part. And for me, that's just dog milk driving. Here we go. We're going to see a replay of it right now. It's just TX3. Actually, no one's at fault there. It's just on the grass. Yeah. And then this is just scrappy because they're trying to recover. I apologise. It's a mistake. I still stand by there is such thing as dog milk driving. That's one of my favourite things out there. Who wants to drink dog milk? No one. Maybe dogs, I guess. But yeah, I got that completely wrong. It looked really bad, but ultimately it was the TX3 car forcing a mistake from the Carbon car, and ultimately then just lost a bit of lost all of the traction on the outside, and then they both had a coming together. As we're seeing Luis Moreno then from the Legion of Racers come back on circuit, rejoining there, not causing, well, actually no, definitely the E-Team Brit there furious with that rejoin. Again, shout out to Connery. Connery's going to be furious as well if he's watching. And then we've got Regan Mitchell here, P80 for Brabham Esports, seeing Team E-Team Brit and Brabham new to this competition. I'm sure we're going to see them improve over the course of when we get to the summer and when we get to the Fall Cup. But yeah, it's been a baptism of fire for these two teams, I would say, the Spring Cup. They had showed some promise on ACC, but rFactor 2 and iRacing's been, I don't know, maybe just a stretch too far for them as it goes. But again, we've seen teams really improved from the World Cup to this stage. So I'm sure we're going to see the same from them.
I mean, like I say, it's always going to be a baptism of fire as we're seeing E-Team Brit. Oh my God, Brabham, don't! Oh, that was going to be a rejoin of the highest order from the number 2 Mika Hakimi, who's had issues coming out of Druids and now leaves it on the inside. Thankfully, pulled up the brakes before rejoining the race circuit. So that is a solid 10 out of 10. I was going to say that Brabham have actually improved a fair amount on the iRacing platform comparatively to where they were on rFactor 2 and ACC. It was issues, I believe, with Zoltan Suti, certainly was in that Mirror Esports car just coming out of Druids, tapping the rear end. The thing is, this car is so difficult to drive. So when you're going side by side with someone, not only are you wrestling to stay side by side with them, you're wrestling to keep the car in control, which is
so easy to oversteer in this car. It's like as soon as you lose it, you're done. Like you're absolutely done. So it becomes very, very difficult in that situation. Yeah, it's not ideal. I want to see the car that's missing the rear wing that just looks like they're off to the shops, by the way. It just looks like they're off down to Asda to pick up their shopping without the rear wing. Just, you know, husband and wife off traveling, just chilling. So, yeah, incredible stuff. I tell you what, it is woo-worthy seeing Chadwick and Arnold. I'm going to give it a woo for sure because they have come and they've conquered. We've not seen someone dominate like this before in this race. This race has always been, historically, you know, you get sort of 38 points likely to go through. So yeah, to see one team take it like that, I think fair play.
I kind of feel, though, as John Lacey Esports Academy, they're the one that pick up a penalty, so that'll basically remove their chances any hope. But they still might well be the 3rd, maybe the 4th team in this race, so that might help. Although it might actually drop them behind Rocket Simsports. Oh, that's actually an interesting thing. If they drop behind Rocket Simsports, they are on 18 points, 6 at the moment, 6th place for them, 10th place for Jordi Spheres, plus the 2 penalty points puts them on 18. And Rocket Simsports are also on 18 points, but with the penalty points being the countback, it will drop them back a position. The reason why I'm saying this is because that affects 12th place in the overall standings, which would then potentially mean that Rocket Simsports are the ones with the invitation or the entry into the Masters. Always say, never trust a commentator's maths, but that is still potential.
Yeah, and that's the big factor here. Again, this is the first race where your finish position, if you're outside the top 2, your finish position is your final position of the day. And how many teams are going through? Is it 14? So right now, what are we battling for? 9 points, is it? I think it's 9 points. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or is it a little bit less than that? 8 points, maybe. I think it's 8, actually. So it's 8 points that they're battling for. If you are the 3rd team, you then get 8 points. So if you're maybe on 25 and you get around that mark, you can potentially get yourself through to the Masters. So, yeah, this race is as important for every team here, just to make sure you get some kind of points. As we see a potential move being made down into, up the hill here into the forest section of the circuit. And, well, thinking better of it, Jacob Maciejewski, who, right now, you don't want to be making any more mistakes.
But this is big, though. If Handover can hang on, it's a guaranteed beat over John Lacey Esports Academy. If he can hang on to that 4th spot, it'd be fantastic for Rocket Simsports. Right now, just getting past, 16 seconds left to go. Based on the previous races, this could be the last lap. I'm not sure as to where William Chadwick is on the racetrack. I think he's potentially coming down towards the Clark curve right now and coming out of the final corner. There he is. This is it. Last lap. And it is all about Team Fordzilla in this. They snatched their position going through into the quarterfinals. They will be joined, I do believe, by Carbon Sim Sports taking up their position.
Maciejewski Handover, they swap positions twice across the line. We've got here a penalty for Absolute Motorsports, not going to make any difference to the results here. But Handover and Maciejewski were crossing the line, swapping positions. Yeah, your maths is better than mine in this one, Lewis. I'm going to let you claim who's gone through here, so that if you're wrong, it's not my fault.
The teams going through in the actual event, in today's action, there is no doubt it is Team Fordzilla and it is Carbon. 1st and 3rd for Fordzilla, or I think we should call them Holdenzilla today. And then, of course, the positions for Carbon being 5th and 8th. It should be them. We'll have to wait and see, but I would not quite bet my house on it, but I'm in that vein. It's just in the overall standings. There are a few teams that are quite close. Absolute are quite close. To give you the rough idea of the point standings, John Lacey Esports Academy, they're on 29 points on the overall standings, and Rocket Simsports on 27. So it might not be enough. Might put them on the same points. don't know. That's for race control and the overall standings to deliver. We'll have to wait and see on that one. As plenty of very damaged Holdens cross the line. I don't think we're shocked. We're looking at a very large repair bill, almost akin to the one they had back in Townsville in the V8 Supercars a few years ago, when I think it was sort of like 250 grand from one race. Either way, focusing on the race at hand, William Chadwick just really in control of this race ahead of Tommaso Mosca in the Absolute Motorsports team. Unfortunately, I think it'll be the last we'll see of them today. Sean Arnold in that third spot with handover and Matajewski very close across the line, switching positions out of the Clark curve. And Mattia Krupi not quite doing enough for Jean Lacey Esports Academy to go through further on the day, but still looking very strong in this second chance race. The final positions coming through Hubert and then Vigrecki. And then Luciano Vitfort with Jordi Zveers inside the top 10 for the Jean Lacey Esports Academy. The rest of the teams will cycle through. But, I mean, that was about as chaotic as we were expecting, Luke. And I wouldn't change the second race for... I love it. I think it's great.
Yeah, I think it's phenomenal. I think that's, if we just went, we're just going to have 12 teams going through, there isn't that second chance. We just wouldn't. We have to expect this to be carnage. People have got to take chances at this stage of the competition. It's not only the last chance today, but it's the last chance to get through to the Masters as well. If you are in and around that top 12 in terms of team positions in the championship. So yeah, I don't want this change for the world. It's carnage, but absolutely you get some incredible results because of it, and that is the nature of the format. This is, again, as I like to say, it's kind of like esports transitioning with sim racing all into one, which gives us this. And there'll be some purists out there, but like, I don't like it, shake my stick and shout at the cloud like an angry old man. But then they would moan about absolutely everything.
Sim racers moaning? Never would happen. Action-packed race, and like Lewis said, plenty of cars damaged as a result, but it does look as though Fordzilla Carbon going through to the quarterfinals, where, Lewis, we talk about how that's the biggest field that we get, 13 cars. Can you imagine that we're going to have an equally stout field in the quarterfinals?
The quarters are difficult. Obviously, we're going from 14 down to 6. Now, at the moment, we don't actually have as many cars as we would kind of have on a full grid, because, of course, some of the 14 teams only have 2 cars, so that kind of takes down the numbers a few. But it's a big grid. That run down towards Paddock Hill, down towards Druids, down towards Graham Hill Bend. To be honest, the first 15 minutes of the race, the whole race, is going to be just drama-filled, and we're looking for 6 teams. Now, I don't necessarily know who's the strongest. I don't think we've got a clear picture. Remember when we raced here on the ERWC at Okayama? It was like, who's joining Redline? At this point, I'm like, either team, I don't know. And that's great, because we've had it with the ERL so far, where day 1 was Unicorns of Love, guaranteed going through to the final unless there's big drama. Day 2, Redline, or round 2 rather, going through regardless, who knows. This one, wide open.
And just looking at the provisional standings, because they still haven't been confirmed out of the second chance race, it looks like Absolute Motorsports would get the most points of those who have now said goodbye to us in the Spring Cup. And crucial for Fordzilla to go through, right, Luke? Because they were sitting in 11th coming into this one. An opportunity for them to get a better seeding for the Masters, for the Jean Lacey Esports Academy, for Rocket Simsport, even for Absolute. The reality is they've probably missed out. Jean Lacey might just actually have squeezed through in 12th and would be seeded in 12th, but valuable points that they're now going to be missing. Remember, $10,000 is on the line in 2 weeks' time.
You say how important was it for Fordzilla just for their seeding? I think, they've got a real genuine chance of making some big money today. I think they could go right up to the top. The reason why they didn't get through they've only got 2 cars. That is also the first factor. But Sean Arnold in this qualifying race was in the wall within meters of the start. Their day was over before it began. To then show the composure that they've shown to come back in what is the most hotly contested race out there, just because of the sheer shenanigans that goes down, and to be as dominant as they were. Watch out for Team Fordzilla. If they get it right off the start, if they qualify well, they could be right in and amongst it with like the surprises like we've seen today. Simza are going to be up there, Yaz Heat are going to be up there, and then we mentioned Team Redline. This is going to be a bit of a classic, I reckon.
Nice transition there, because Team Redline have been the dominating force in the Esports Racing League and indeed the Esports Racing World Cup. They've only missed one of the finals. The only team that's won other than them has been the Unicorns of Love, really showing their versatility across the platforms. And Lewis McLeod had the chance to chat with the sporting director of your Esports Racing World Champions in 2022. Let's hear from Mark Prinzig.
So we're joined by Mark Prinsing, the sporting director of Team Redline. And Mark, let's be honest, Redline can't stop winning at the moment. What's the secret sauce? What's the secret ingredient? You've got to fill us in a bit more.
Yeah, hey Lewis. Yeah, it's true. We've had quite a successful start to 2022 so far. I guess if we look at ERL in particular, it's kind of plays into our strong point, being on 3 different sims. You know, that's what we always focus on, to be active in not just one sim, not just one competition, but always have these crossovers. But that works quite well for us, I guess. And yeah, just worked out well. Our drivers were really up to it. Not too many mistakes, so really happy so far, yeah.
Now, obviously, you take part in other competitions across multiple platforms outside of just here in the ERL. How hard is it to run a team across multiple platforms at the front on each of them?
Yeah, it's super hard, and it's actually something that's probably our main thing to look at right now, because we always have to decide, you know, what competition we enter, and sadly there are some competitions we can't enter, because there's just too many of them, which I guess it's a good sign for sim racing overall, but yeah, at this point we have to prioritize and only, you know, enter competitions where we can do them basically and have the bandwidth to do them. But even so, I mean, if you just look at this year now, I mean, with the competitions running already, and especially now during summer, it will all pick up again a little bit more. It will be a headache. It's something that's really hard to do. It's always, if you practice, maybe on one day you don't just practice one track, one sim. Maybe you look at 3 different sims at one day for some drivers, which isn't optimal always, but yeah, sometimes you got to do it in order to compete at these different competitions. But it's also important to, as I said, not to overload yourself, because at a certain point you just won't be able to be the top. It's just getting way too high to be able at the top, being at the top at everything you enter, if you enter too much.
Now, what does 2022 hold for you? You had such a successful campaign in 2021. What's on the horizon?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, lots of competitions coming up already, especially in iRacing and rFactor 2. So that's probably our main things to look at. Also now with, I mean, we've got lots of new competitions. Same as, I mean, if you just look at ERL, that's something that came up this year, which we want to compete in, which we want to do well in, of course. We got an ERWC title to defend as well. So that's something to look at. And yeah, just to better than 2021, of course. I mean, it's a big ask, because we had a really successful year last year already, but we still think that there are some areas where we can improve. You know, we didn't necessarily win everything or perform everything to what we would hoped we would perform like. So we mainly want to improve on 2021 and defend our titles where we can.
Now, focusing on the VCO Esports Racing League, there is a notable absence from the league, obviously in Coanda SimSport. Of course, there are plenty of other teams that haven't been able to participate as well. How much does it kind of mean to you? Is it a positive that Coanda aren't taking part in this, or would you kind of rather see them in the competition as someone to tackle on sim to sim?
I would have loved to drive against Coanda, to be honest, because in the end you have to give them credit. They are always at the top as well. And I mean, that if you just look at the iRacing side, also at rFactor 2, Virtual Le Mans, for example, they're always there, and they're always a team which we're fighting. So of course I would have loved to see them. Maybe they just didn't feel like they were as strong across 3 different sims and could necessarily compete for the overall title. So maybe that plays into the role, but yeah, I would have loved to see them enter, because, as I said, they're a really strong team, but I think across all 3 sims we would have still been able to come out on top, so I don't think it necessarily impacts our result too much in the end.
Now, you've said there's so much in the sim racing world and the landscape of what we can expect to see and such, but I kind of wanted to ask you, as a team that's got so much experience in sim racing, that's been here for such a long time, what do you as a team feel was missing from sim racing? Do you think there's anything that we can sort of capitalise on over the next sort of 12, 24, 36 months, however long?
Yeah, I mean, I think the ERL is a prime example for this, just to try out some new formats, try out some new innovative championships, because in the end, we love racing, right? But it's always a little bit sort of the same, right? Okay, there's different forms of racing. There's endurance racing, there's sprint racing, there are championships, but it's always fun to try out something new, just like the ERL, to have something new, basically. We really like the aspect of the different sims, and also to this, sort of this little esports tournament format that has been introduced. That's something really entertaining to watch, I think. So I think I'm just looking forward to more of those competitions that try out something new, basically, because I think that's what we are lacking at sim racing at the moment a little bit. It's always, as I said, we love racing, but it's a little bit repetitive at times. And I think if there are competitions out there who can just introduce something new, then this will be really fun to watch.
Well, thank you very much, Mark. We'll let you get back to the team, and best of luck.
Perfect. Thanks for having me.
Great chat with Team Redline and one of the people behind all of their success. But we're ready now for the quarterfinal. Let's quickly take a look at the teams before we get back to Brands Hatch and the racing action at hand. Remember, 4 teams advanced directly from each of our heats. Heat 1 was Redline, Yas Heat, Veloce, and Burst Esports. Williams took the victory in Heat 2 and advanced along with Simsa, Unicorns of Love, who really stepped up their performance across the platforms that they may be less favored on. They're very much looking strong as well with Triton Racing. Heat 3 was the Pink and Black, Arnage Competition, and the Apex Racing team. 2 strong runners on iRacing in general, not necessarily in this car, and despite their lack of diversity in the field for BS competition, just 2 drivers for them, 2 drivers at RAG, both of them make it through. Fordzilla and Carbon Simsport coming through the second chance race. Will the 2 driver teams be at a slight disadvantage from this stage forward? We're about to find out. Let's go back for the quarterfinal, where again, I'll step away, be following along with you in chat. Lewis and Luke will be taking you through all the action.
Ladies and gentle cars, here we are, quarterfinals time. We've had the heats, we've had the last chance, second chance, whatever you want to call it. Now it's time for the quarterfinals here. It is 14 teams down to 6. So only 6 teams are going to go through from this stage of the competition to our semi-finals, and then it will be 2 teams from our semi-finals going into a 1v1 in the final. My name's Luke Crane. I am joined by the luscious Lewis. How you doing, Lewis? Are you excited for this one?
Always. I mean, these are the races that this is when this event gets really exciting. We're always super excited for these ones. It's where it gets really, really interesting. We have some of the favourites, like, we know some of the teams that are expected to go through. As Ricardo Rico has a bit of an issue. This is actually one of the teams I was expecting to do well. But the likes of Redline, Apex, Veloce, even Unicorns of Love look quite strong. Yas Heat, all of these teams look good, but there are a few others that can throw something into the mix and maybe find their way into the semi-finals, looking for a grand snatch at Brands Hatch.
Absolutely. Oh, I love it. Absolutely love it. Look, I want to shout out Burton here. Burton is 0.2 of a second faster, or just a little bit less than 0.2 of a second, but he's a considerable margin ahead of the likes of Lullum and Benito right now. But look at the gap then between, well, how far are we going to go down here? Let's go down to P10. P2 to P10 is 0.3 of a second. It is so close between the rest of the pack here. Burton, if he can have Martins back him up, Martins just needs to be in and around the top 10 here. Get yourselves to that semi-final, and if you could just potentially go one step further into the final, you got someone in Burton who could go out there and dominate and win races. Now, it's only the top 2 drivers, so if Burton was to get to the final, let's just talk hypothetically here. Let's throw Redline in there, they deserve to be in the conversation, right? Redline versus Yas Heat. It's only 5 cars, okay? But, oh, that's not ideal. And well, just bin it, don't get out your mate's way. Holtzman, that did not get held up. It was almost a case of like, oh no, I'm gonna hold my teammate up here. Just chuck it in the wall. Burton could legitimately drag Yas Heat here to a final, potentially to a victory. Because if he finishes in P1, the maximum that could be scored by his team would be 6 points. Ultimately, then you look at Redline, they've got to get, second and third to get 5, so they would win an event, if you like. But all they would need to do is just gain 1 position, right? So they would only need to finish in 1st and 5th in the final each time. And Yas Heat could take it on. This is what I mean by one driver can dominate a final, but it's about getting there.
Yeah, and it's not an easy route, and some teams already coming off of a few issues. Williams Esports being one of those. You can see Canapino down in 16th position, the highest placed Williams Esports driver, which despite the amazing display from Martin Stefanko in the in the heats, it's got to be said, in a bit of trouble here. Triggered the qualifying scrutiny on the platform, which means he can't do qualifying. So that's already a massive, massive issue starting way down the order.
Well, here is your grid then, ladies and gentlemen. We're expecting it. Jake Burton, it does take P1. It's Chris Lullum in second. Enzo Benito is in third. What a beautiful human he is. Johan Harth then is in fourth. We then got Emily Jones in fifth. And Jamie Fluke rounds out your third row. Erhan Yayovsky finally gets a lap time in. He's P7 on the same row here as Martin van Lozenord. That is great news for R8G. Jarl Tain is in ninth position with David Toth in 10th spot. Then we've got Tobias Pfeffer for Unicorns of Love in 11th. And then we've got Kazuki Umeshima for Burst Esports in 12th spot. We've then got Maxim Brient, Ricardo Rico, Andre Martins, Augustin Canapino, William Chadwick, and Michael Romanidis rounding out your top 18. Jimmy Antunes, Jacob Sharkot, Tony Runanen, Isaac Gillison, Gustas Grimbergas, and Sean Arnold round out the top 24. Then we've got Ramez Azam, Patrick Holtzman, Jacob Maciejewski, Maciej Milniak, Colin Spork, and Ewan Marion as your 30 drivers. And then we've got two more there. Gregor Schill, who is in 31st, and Michi Hoyer is in 32nd position here. 32 drivers here, Lewis. This is going to be frantic. The race is just a touch longer. 6 teams. There looks like there's going to be a couple of favourites here, isn't there? Yaz Heat looked pretty good. It looks pretty good also for Redline. It looks pretty good for R8G. Outside of that, it's wide open, isn't it?
Yeah, you got a couple of apexes there that you can see. Obviously, right-hand side of shot, there's 2 of them in a row with Johan Harth just ahead of Jamie Fluke, 4th and 6th. So they're looking pretty strong. R8G, like you say, right up there. Thankfully, Johan Jofsky was able to qualify at this time. But it's not an easy one. And knowing how the drama is at turn 1, all of the order that we're seeing here, all of the ones that you'd see as a guarantee from qualifying, this can end immediately on that run down into Paddock Hill. That's the real kicker. And yeah, we saw it with Fordzilla. They need to avoid those issues they had in their heats.
100%. I want to give a shout out to Veloce with this car specifically on this sim. If you've got Emily Jones in your team, you have a chance. It is as simple as that. But can she get backed up by one of her fellow drivers? Here we go then. We're about to go green light racing here, and we are officially green light racing here in our quarterfinals for this championship race here in the Spring Cup. As we come around turn number 1 here, I tell you what, it is Burton trying to hold his line here, but Benito is absolutely looking to go all the way around the outside here, and we're going to head up towards turn number 2, and it is not going to be that clear cut. It is still side by side between the two of them, and all Burton there absolutely sending that Redline driver wide there, and there wasn't a lot in that, but as we come down towards Graham Hill Bend, Enzo Benito is going to do exactly the same there, tit for tat, and that is not good for Yaz Heat. They need Burton to go out there and get race victories. Getting involved in silly things like that at the start of a race is not ideal, and as it stands, it's actually Apex that lead the race.
Yeah, Johan Harth managing to come through and all of that. There was an issue, by the way, a staller on the grid, Jakob Charcot, that was stationary on the grid. Didn't get going. Thankfully, everyone seemed to avoid him at the moment, though. Apex leading. We've seen Apex and Redline battling this car in the ERWC. Looks like Apex are also trying to work their way up in the background. It's Jamie Fluke, race winner earlier today, who's going side by side, I believe, with Erhan Yayovsky and trying to keep David Toth at bay as he marches his way up the order now into 7th position as we focus down on that battle. BS competition here is Jarl Tain on the cusp of the top 10. Oh, there goes the Arnage.
Yeah, off they go. Yeah, that is absolutely going to be a trip there on holiday to the kitty litter, as Arjuna would call it. That is not ideal. That is race over for him specifically. It looked like we had a second car there also going around, but it was a Ricardo Rico then does find himself down at the back of the orders. The battle for P1 is still absolutely plenty here. Apex versus Redline. We have heard this before. We've heard this before on this platform in the ERWC merely a couple of months ago here, and will the Apex team just keep that overlap down towards Graham Hill? I don't think it's quite going to work out here, and Benito then has been in the wars in this race, but will take the race lead, and it now is a 1-3. Oh no, sorry, it's Chris Lullum. Sorry, it's Lullum in the lead of this race then. Harth in second, Benito is in third. Emily Jones, I told you, if you've got Emily Jones in your team, you have a chance, but well, is she being backed up as it stands, no one in the top 16 from Veloce other than Emily Jones. 2 Team Redline drivers in P1 and P3, that's 4 points. They're golden to go through here. Apex, as it stands, have got 2 and 7, that's 9 points for them. RAG, they're looking pretty good here, 6th and 9th position. But outside of that, really, it is absolutely wide open here. There's not really a clear-cut 3 teams outside of that.
Yeah, there's, like I say, a lot of issues in the start of the race where we did have a few teams that were in fairly comfortable positions. Now we certainly do not. Yassi being one of them. We were asking the question beforehand. You know, we were all chatting about it between myself, you, Luke, and Arjuna before we went live. Is that for Yassi, for Veloce, wouldn't it have been maybe a better idea to put Emily Jones and Jake Burton in the same team, knowing how strong they are? That would surely have been, as near as makes no difference, a guaranteed final lineup. But they've split them out. They're trying to get both teams through at least into the semis. It seems to be biting them a little bit. Isaac Gillison's down in 19th position, if memory serves, for the Veloce team. So that's 23 points to Veloce, which I'm not so sure is going to be good enough. For Yassi, it's not so bad with 5th and 13th. They should be good to move through as we go back down to that 13th battle as Chadwick trying to get past Augustin Canapino.
Yeah, I'm really surprised here from Fordzilla. Where Fordzilla right now, what's their best position here? 15th? Chadwick's in 15th. Is anyone up a bit higher than it's not really? So, yeah, not ideal. So watching Chadwick trying to make up another position here on Canapino. As we've got the sweeping right-hander here, you're going to be so slow on the exit. And also you obviously can't run out wide unless the car on the outside gives up, and he absolutely did give up there. And the Fordzilla team will indeed go through. And why is that? Is the Williams... Well, no, Williams haven't really got... No, Williams haven't got loads of cars up there in the ascendancy at the front end either. So that's a strange decision there. I guess it makes sense just to make sure that you've got an opportunity. But yeah, as it stands, it's probably 4 teams then, isn't it? 4 teams we're looking at that are more than likely to go through. Yassi, we're adding to that list here. But beyond that, I think we could see some of the biggest scores ever get through towards our quarterfinals.
Well, like I say, we've got Redline 1st and 3rd, you've got Apex 2nd and 7th. They're guaranteed, realistically, at this point, as we've got plenty of side-by-side up and down the order. RAG with 6th and 9th. Like you said, Yaz Heat, there's the battle with Arnage moving up. Important for Jimmy Antunes to make some progress here. 18th position now, getting past one of the Veloce cars, as there's the Williams going around the outside of one of the Redline of Patrick Holtzman. But the Arnage could go through, because obviously they've got Darren Toth in 8th position, so a bit more
Jones is 3 ahead. Jones is 3 ahead, remember that. So they've only got 1 position ahead now of another Veloce car, and Jones has got 3 positions ahead of the other Arnage car, so it kind of evens out. So it's 2 points, a 2-point swing, I think. But
remember, we're looking at 6 cars moving through. It doesn't matter if you're 1st, 5th, 6th, whatever it is. You know, we're looking at 6 teams getting through. As Yovski's had an issue, Yovski's had an issue. Oh, Yovski's off the road.
Yeah, we need to see a replay of that there as well, whether he was or not. He was helped off, as we can see. Well, he's lost, what, 10, 12 positions, and the 3rd Redline car comes through. Another Williams Esports car comes through, which is quite vital for their passage through. RAG now looking under a lot of pressure, as Lozenord's only P6. Yayovski's now down to P22. That's going to be 28 points in total, and now that opens up the door of opportunity for a lot of other teams here. RAG, who you pretty much... It's a shoe-in, right? It's guaranteed to reach the semi-finals at the very least, but not so much by here. It looks like he's going to be on his own, isn't it? Yeah, on the brakes on the grass. It's just so easy to do. You're trying to open up the corner as best you possibly can by taking a nice wide entry through it, but ultimately it just got too greedy, just a little bit too greedy, and that's something you would not expect from someone so experienced as Yuyovski.
Yeah, I mean, he's got so much experience in sim racing. Completely dominated the last round of the ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship. Obviously, a 2-time rFactor 2 GT Pro Series champion. I mean, you can throw so many accolades at the man. He's won so much in the world of sim racing. BMW Sim Live on rFactor 2. Honestly, countless stuff. A fantastic driver. There's Jackie Charkot moving his way back up the order after a stall, or at least a properly stationary start to this race. He'll be able to stall the car, but either way, he did not get going. That's the critical thing.
Yeah, pressure in this environment. You know, this is every single race is effectively, you know, a last chance opportunity each and every time. If you fall outside that top 6 now, if you fall outside the top 2 in the next race, it is day over. So you just want to really, at this point, just try and extend your day as much as you possibly can. It's not going to be enough here to qualify through to our semi-finals. As we see a battle for the lead then happen as Johan Half tries to force a little bit of an opening here. He absolutely is going to take that. I think Lullum is probably going to let him have it here, although he might try and do the old, as Crofty would say, the swapperoo. Yeah, I have no idea why he invented that word, but here we are. Up towards turn number 2 we go, and Lullum very, very cleverly ekes Half out. You can see that Benito is not going to get involved. Yeah, Lullum is absolutely just going to go across there and force Half then to not be able to go late under braking down through Graham Hill. Benito then just indeed consolidates himself in P3 again. He will tie Siggy for the most podiums and the MVD if he gets a podium in this race. Remember, if he gets through to the semi-finals, which is looking very, very likely, another opportunity to go out there and take the lead. If he reaches the final, there's 2 races at a minimum with a chance of, well, what was it? A 50-50 chance of reaching a podium, as we do indeed have a 2 penalty point for Milos Wagrecki. He is driving Carvin Sim Sport. They're not looking golden to go through anyway, so it's not going to make too much of a difference, but if they were to manage to make up a couple of spots here, that would be a massive negative effect to how they would go through. So right now, Redline looking good, Apex looking really, really good. Yaz Heat, I think are, I don't know whether Yaz Heat are going to be looking good or not. Yeah, they're good, they're fine, sorry. Maybe Team 4 Dylan now. I don't know what's happening with Williams. I have no idea here. This is actually ridiculous, because I only really can see 3 standout teams that are genuinely going to go through.
Yeah, it's pretty strong now. This is probably the most open quarterfinal that we've had when it comes to just big questions as to who's going through at this point. There are a few questions that I've got to ask. Redline fighting so hard for the lead actually doesn't make that much sense to me as we ride on board with Martin van Loosenoord, because the thing is Redline, their 3rd car is down in 20th spot, maybe up now to 18th spot in the former paddock holders. So it's not too bad, but that's their 3rd car, so they can't really risk too much in this battle. Apex though, they can throw whatever they want in it really, because Johan Half is 2nd, Jamie Fluke is 7th, and then Maxime Briant is 12th, so they can afford to take a little bit more risk than Redline. That said, both of them are in pretty safe spots to move through into the semis, and to be fair, I am glad they are putting on a show. There are the results at the moment. Redline, Apex, Yazzie, Veloce, R8G and Arnage, potentially your 6 teams. How much is that going to change in the next 5.5 minutes?
Well, yeah, I would imagine quite heavily, to be honest. You know, all it's going to take is one mistake, very similarly to what we saw from Yayovsky earlier, for the whole outlook to change, just one driver. So it's battles like this. It's battles for the lead of a race between 6, 7, 8, 9 cars. They don't need to be doing this, but they absolutely have to. Especially if you're Lullum, you're kind of forced to go at a crazy pace here. Otherwise, you can, you know, be caught out. And look at Yayovsky. He got back onto circuit, got back up to speed, but you know, as soon as you go to the next corner, because you've been on the grass, your tyres are in such trouble that you lose 3 spots up the inside. So right now, you kind of just have to go at that pace. I think if you're Lullum, I don't think Benito really needs to be pushing as hard. So I think for him, he could probably take the foot off the gas. But on the flip side, he's also going for the MVD. So there's plenty of things that these drivers are also going for outside of just getting through at this stage. Lullum's driving style always cracks me up here. He gains 0.4 of a second a lap just from leaning. Everybody knows that if you're a sim racer. That's a fact here. But he just grimaces through every corner. You see drivers, you know, we say, oh, they look so smooth, and but he just doesn't, does he? He's just literally grimacing. He's fighting that car through. I guess it's the nature of the V8 supercar, right? It is that kind of car where, well, there we go. He's sweating. He's giving it all sorts. I'll tell you what, you can't really say that he's not given 100% in this situation. But also the last driver you want behind you really is Johan Half as well.
Yeah, you're going to pounce on any moment. Enzo Benito was looking to pounce potentially on Half, but no, it is the interesting thing. I mean, there's a few drivers that have interesting plays. Obviously now with us having basically webcams on everyone these days, I have no idea what I look like driving. I'm sure I look ridiculous when throwing a car around. Obviously nowhere near the speed of any of these drivers, but Sebastian Job, that's one that I really like, because every time he goes into a corner, he starts like sucking in the air, like he starts moving his tongue around. You can see it, and it's very bizarre, but it's every corner, and I don't know what it is. You just don't really think about what you look like when you're trying to focus on throwing a car around on its like way beyond its limit. And like I say, some people lean, some people tilt their head slightly, some people like basically throwing them around. We need seatbelts now for sim racing rigs, I think.
Yes, that's the new thing, right? I like to lean. I do a lot of oval racing, and I lean every single corner. I poke my tongue out as well. Like, my tongue comes out all the time as well. So, yeah, you just don't think about it. When you're concentrating, you just don't care what you look like. It's as simple as that. Not to say that Lullen looked bad in the slightest here. It's just a really, really, very unique driving style. Look, you know, we should never be having cams of Enzo Benito on screen. We should be paying for that kind of content, I'm afraid.
I think there's a website for that.
Yeah, I think there is. I'm not going to go too far into that. Lullen still leads, by the way. Hart second, Benito third. Emily Jones fourth. Again, could have done with a bit of backup here. We talk about, you know, potentially putting Burton and Jones together. They would have had to have submitted that before week 1 of the championship. So they would have been looking at all 3 sims. So I guess that's what comes into it more than anything. And that would have mean that one of the drivers from Veloce would have had to have made way, and they probably felt like they had a stronger lineup. And they did, because they performed very, very well over the course of the first 2 sims. So yeah, it is a strange one when we come to this specific car, but overall I don't think it's the worst decision in the world. I think it's going to unfortunately work in a negative effect for them today, but yeah, it is one of those things. Look at Johan Hart, he is really closing up. Enzo Benito is very, very close here as well. Again, he's just trying to open up the corner so he can get the power a little bit earlier on the exit, maybe try and force something down towards Graham Hill, but Johan Hart really is nailing every single acceleration point here. It's a bit of a mistake there from Lullen. Lullen is going to run out a little bit further out onto the AstroTurf than everybody else. Half maybe going to try and shape up for a move through Surtees. Not quite close enough here. Again, you can see the car sliding at this stage of the race as well. Tyres are going to be absolutely screaming at them. I know it's only a short sprint race, but they are not a fan of doing much more than 2 laps, as we heard from Burton earlier on. Up then the hill we come. In towards the forest section. The front 3 are so close here, and Lullen will just be hoping that there's no send here. But like you said, the Apex team, they've got nothing to lose.
This is the thing, though. Did you see Johan Hart there going into Hawthorne? Same issue that we had with Iovsky, where touching that grass, I've seen it a few times as well. When you think of it from this point of view, is that you are struggling for vision based on the car that's directly ahead, and still taking it all the way over to that track limit on the left-hand side. Which is honestly mind-boggling, especially considering you're sat on the, you're in the car, you're sat on the right-hand side of the car, if memory serves. So that's even more ridiculous. They're getting that level of judgment as we head onto the final lap of the race. Lullen, Hart and Benito, 1, 2 and 3. They are starting to pull away from that grouping behind. Not that it really matters too much when it comes to their chances of moving through.
Yeah, look, there's a reason why we're talking about it and they're doing it, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's stuff that we can't really comprehend, ultimately. That's why they're at a different level. I want to throw something out here. Half, of course, has been absolutely lightning here, but Fluke won a heat race earlier on. So, obviously, Apex maybe not quite showing off their full potential around Brands Hatch, I would say, when it comes to a potential final. I think Apex are going to be in and amongst it, aren't they? They're going to be very, very close here. It looks like 10 penalty points there for Rico for an unsafe rejoin. Absolutely deserved. If you rejoin the track unsafely, is the only thing, really, you have full control of. You can look left, you can look right. If you join in oncoming traffic, you should be banned forever, not just 10 penalty points. So, again, they should be called 10 Connery points, to be honest.
I was going to say, I didn't realise Connery was in the booth.
That's well deserved. I'm fully for it here. We're coming up towards the final corner then. Lullen being under some severe pressure, of course. Just getting passage through to the semi-finals is really the objective here, and he's absolutely done that for Team Redline. Leading from the front, he is going to pick up P1 here, maybe an aggressive driving style, but it is a very, very good driving style to get them through as P1. Half then, P2. And while we've seen 2 big performances from Apex today, Half and Fluke both look like they're at the races today, that's for sure. Enzo Benito, as dashing as he may look, still performs well behind the wheel. He's 3rd position. Emily Jones, 4th spot. You know that if you've got Emily Jones in your team in the V8 Supercar, you've got a chance. Unfortunately, not going to be backed up. We've got Burton then, who finishes in P5 after a win in the heats earlier on. Lozenord, P6. Did he get backed up enough, though, to qualify with Yuyovsky? We're about to find out. We've then got Fluke, Toth, Tayan, and Pfeffer as your top 10. It was to be expected, though, Lewis, wasn't it? The top 2 teams, really, you're expecting to see Redline and Apex, considering they duked it out in the World Cup on iRacing, and ultimately we're seeing the same result here in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, interesting results to see Redline and Apex right up there again. Are we going to see those 2 in the finals? RHG, though, if they do go through, we're not sure what the points are at. Haniovsky had decent pace, to be perfectly honest, and just threw it away himself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're about to find out now here. So Lullum, Hearth, Benito is your top 3. We've got Emily Jones, Burton, Van Lozenord, Fluke, Toth, Tayan, and Theppa as your top 10. Then the next 10 drivers, we've got Andre Martins, Maxime Brient, William Chadwick, Augustin Canapino, Tony Runanen, Kazuki Umashima, Isaac Gillison, Patrick Holtzman. We've then got Michael Romanidis. Ramez Azem is your top 20. Then we've got Erhan Yayovsky, P21. Could well be enough, you know. Matthias Lujak. We've then got Jimmy Antunes, Colin Spork, Jacob Maciejewski, Maciej Milniak. We've then got Jacob Sharkot, Martin Stefanko, Gregor Schill, Gustas Grinbergas as your 30 drivers. And then the next 7, we've got Milos Rogrecki, Marco Pajic, Michi Hoyer, Sean Arnold, Noah Ruvers, Ricardo Rico, and Evan Marion. What a race it was for the quarterfinals. We've got 6 teams going through to the semi-finals. But Arjuna, how did you find that one? After doing all the maths for us and all that good stuff, that was pretty good.
I was doing so much math that I didn't send any of it to you, but I was trying to keep you informed of some of the chaos. I think Fordzilla, big losers on lap 1. Yeah, Sean Arnold's got some penalty points, but I think either way you could really look at that one. It was contact with Carbon Simsport. Arnage, the 10 penalty points is obviously big. We don't like an unsafe rejoin. They would have made it without those penalty points, but it's possible if Jimmy Antunes hadn't had his own issue as well, that they would have been in a slightly better situation. So I think the quarterfinals again shows that chaos is abound in these bigger races, Lewis. I mean, that's the reality, right? Second chance in the quarterfinals, our biggest race by far. There's always plenty of drama no matter where you look.
Yeah, now things calm down. I don't know if that's really the right way of putting it. Obviously, 6 teams now trying to go down into 2, but the grid's a lot smaller now. We're getting into the smaller grids. We've had our chaos and drama. We're now heading into the slightly more natural grid. This is more sort of what we have akin to standard racing, where you're talking of around 20 to 30 cars. Obviously, now we're below that with 18 roughly. For me, like I say, it's always from the quarterfinals onwards where this event just gets so interesting. Quarterfinals are crazy, semi-finals are that 50-50 middle ground, and then the finals are just this whole different level of just, I don't know what to expect.
You can't script it, that's for sure. Just like the Oscars couldn't script what happened this year. I tell you what, though, we're going to step aside again as we get ready for the semi-finals. We'll talk to one of our newer teams who have joined us for this Esports Racing League. E-Team Brit is a fantastic story, trying to get those that have suffered and have disabilities back, not just racing virtually, but racing in the real world as well. And Lewis, again, caught up with Yvonne Hoflauer, the team manager of E-Team Brit.
Joined by Yvonne Hoflauer from E-Team Brit. Hello, welcome again. We caught up with you about a month ago when we were doing our ACC broadcast. You were basically brand new to taking on the managerial role within E-Team Brit. Talk to us about how things are settling within the team.
Hello, thank you for being here. Well, it's settling in. It's a lot of work and rebuilding, and it's going well. Some interesting projects coming up, and I'm looking forward to it.
Now, the team's somewhat struggled over the first couple of rounds, but speak to us from more of a positive point of view. What have the positives been from the team that you've taken from the first 2 rounds here in ERL?
Well, especially the first one was a struggle. We just came in a day before, and we didn't have much experience. The rFactor race, we had more time to practice with the 3 drivers, so that was already a better start. And it was going a little bit better than the ACC race. And now tomorrow on iRacing, I'm gonna drive as well. I'm a little bit nervous about it because I'm not very good in iRacing as I want to. But we're gonna practice tonight on the 2 tracks, and then tomorrow again, and hopefully we can go for a better result.
Now, speak to us from a driver's point of view then, because it's always fun to have that side, obviously managing the team and then driving. Difficult to do the 2 roles, or do you kind of just let the team focus in on itself when you're driving?
Well, everything is settled in already when I'm driving, so that's good, and we can just focus on the driving, do our best, give it all, and see where we end up. It's going to be difficult again, but we'll just give it all, and we'll see.
What are the expectations of the team on iRacing?
Well, I know my two teammates, Bradley and Martin, are a bit more experienced in iRacing than I have, because I drove some special events and that's it. I just didn't have time to get more time in it. And I can learn from them. So we're going to practice together and we'll see tomorrow how far we can come.
Now you've had a month or so to settle into the team. You've already said there that you had ideas in the pipeline and stuff. What's the sort of rate of progression of the team? Where are you headed?
Well, we are starting now a new project, Disabled Sim Racer to Disabled Track Racer. And it's going on really fast now. And I'm already on track the 11th of April at Silverstone for a track day. After 11 years, I'm going back in the car. So it's going very quick. And we are building now around this project to find partners. And the goal is to race this season and to get more sim racers, disabled sim racers, involved also in the racing.
How important is it to make sure that drivers of all forms of ability can take part in sim racing?
It's very important because they are not less than a healthy driver or a normal driver, how you want to call it. And it's very important that they also have a chance to get the best out of themselves with the adjusters they need. If it's hand controls or driving with one hand, it's all possible. And they also can reach a lot and achieve a lot. And that's good.
And finally, over the first couple of rounds, has there been any team that you've sort of eyed up as being the target for you to at least get one up on them?
Well, it will be great to beat RAG Esports. I'll work together with them and still do. So it will be great, but it's just too far away. I wish I could do that. I will just support them and it will just be great if we can come in the next round. We were close in rFactor, so it was a shame that we missed it. But hopefully this round we can do that.
Well, thanks, Von. We'll let you get back to it.
Okay, thank you.
E-Team Brit does so much for the community, and sim racing very much is a place where those with disabilities can regain their love for racing. You see that with the likes of Robert Wickens, but through the community, some great stories. And if you're a member of iRacing, head to the forums and you can see some great homemade rigs and jerry-rigged rigs that people have put together. So we're done with the quarters. We're ready for the semi-finals. Qualifying is about to get underway, so let's quickly talk to you about the teams that have made it through, because we can confirm that Arnage, with that 10-point penalty, have dropped out of your semi-final places. Redline and the Apex Racing team fighting at the front comfortably go on through. Yassi and Veloce, the sister teams with one another, advance alongside as well, with RAG just two drivers there, but two drivers doesn't matter as long as they're quick. Williams Esports taking advantage of that slip up from Arnage, but Unicorns of Love only 1 point away from making it in. And if they had tied on points, Unicorns of Love would have had the tiebreaker. And Lewis, I'll come to you with this one. The exponential increase of pace that we've seen from the Unicorns of Love here on iRacing is remarkable, and it shows that a competition like this can incentivize teams that don't specialize in iRacing or rFactor 2, for example, to dive deeper and to prove why they're so quick.
Well, this is the one that Unicorns of Love were looking at as being the one they needed to target. You know, with Unicorns of Love being unbelievably strong on ACC, with NetRex being their main focus to get them up to speed, of course, and their partnership and assistance with the drivers like Colin Spork and Noah Roivers. That's their focus, obviously, on the RF2 platform. The iRacing's the one they come along to and like, we'll learn. But this is kind of showing that actually now we're starting to see them in other competitions as well, that this is a bit of a focus, that maybe we can see Unicorns of Love and NetRex actually taking on proper competitions on iRacing. This is the gateway for them.
Reminder as well, if you're watching here on Twitch or YouTube, but you want an international flair to your VCO Esports Racing League experience, we've got Hungarian, Portuguese, and Spanish feeds. Head on over to our VCO Esports YouTube page to learn more about everyone behind the scenes there. This is not the only crazy thing that VCO's got, though, in the pipelines. We're delighted to be able to announce a new digital, or print magazine, I should say, about the digital world of esports racing. Send It is the next step for Florian Hasper and the entire VCO team. More details will come out about this in the next couple of days as the first edition gets finalized. It's about the people that form the community, in-depth features, behind-the-scenes stories, 4 editions a year, 80 to 90 pages. Things to look forward to in edition 1 of this Send It is an interview with Roman Grosjean, who of course is cheering on his R8G team from the streets of Long Beach, where he's ready for round 3 of the NTT IndyCar Series. A full story on the path that Jimmy Broadbent has taken to really go from virtual to reality, a behind-the-scenes look at the Apex Racing team and their new facility, and many other cool stories. You'll even get to see me and Lewis debate who is the best sim racing team.
It was an argument.
It was an argument, let's be honest. We didn't come to we didn't come to a conclusion, and that's the beauty of sim racing. You can learn more about it at v-c-o.info/get-send-it. We'll get the link in the chats to make it a little bit easier for you to follow along. The first edition will be out in May. Luke hasn't done much talking since we came back from break, but that's because he's getting ready for the semi-finals, where he will be ballistic and in love with Enzo Benito. Let's not dawdle any longer. Qualifying for the semi-finals is almost finished. Let's go back to Brands Hatch, where Lewis and Luke will take you through the action.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the final race you're going to hear from me. This is semi-final time, and, well, this is going to be exciting here, Lewis, isn't it? We've kind of, for the first time, there isn't really a standout 2. There's kind of, 3 or 4 teams. I think Williams making it to this stage, they may have been lucky to get here, but they've won a race in the heats as well. So they could be a massive thorn in everybody else's side here. I'm going to just come to you. I'm going to throw it at you. Who do you think is going to go through here? Is there the potential for a surprise?
I think it will be either Redline, Veloce, R8G, Apex, Yazheat, or Williams. Obviously, anyone. I think Redline are a surefire hit to go through. I don't know who that second one's going to be. I'm actually going to lean on Yazheat. I think Yazheat are going to be the team to go through. Obviously, there was a couple of issues in the last race, but still they managed to sneak their way through. I think on a smaller grid where they're a bit more in control of it, and as you were saying, one driver makes a bit more of a difference, I think that will be the team to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I can't really look past Apex to be that second team, to be completely honest with you. If Yuyovsky could have a pretty clean race, you've got to look at R8G because Lowe's Nordich is so fast. On this sim, let's not say this car, it's not particularly his strength, this car, to be honest, but this sim particularly, he's a world championship driver. It's as simple as that. It doesn't get much better than that. Redline, of course, they look super strong here, but is there going to be that standout single performance potentially from one of the Williams team? Potentially Emily Jones could find a bit of form here. It is really wide open. You guys were just mentioning unicorns, and Love Arjuna just said, sorry, I should have asked you about it. I've got a genuine opinion on this. Like, they've targeted rFactor 2 and they've targeted ACC, right? And the 2 first masters we have are ACC and rFactor 2. We don't get to iRacing until the fall of this year, so I don't think they needed to really target that in terms of the masters where the big money's at. Anyway, so I think this is going to be good for them. Like, they know they've got to improve. I think having a poor performance on iRacing again is going to be, obviously a recipe for them to go out there and improve. But they are the team, I think, that outside of the Apex team, or the Apex have had a pretty bad, championship so far, if we're going to be completely honest, apart from today. R8G, Redline, Williams, I think Unicorns of Love are the team that can probably go and burst into that sort of top 4, if you like.
Well, they weren't a million miles away from getting into this, to be perfectly honest. So I wouldn't necessarily rule it out. So issues from the Redline cars coming across the line. Let's see what positions they actually end up progressing into. I think first, fourth, and sixth is all they'll do. Obviously, waiting for the timesheets to update. At the moment, based on this, it's Redline and Apex. You're right.
Yeah, but look at Burton. It's going to take that one special performance at this stage here with one driver, and it can indeed advance you through to the next stage of the competition. As it stands, Yaz Heat, if it was to finish as it is right now, Burton was in P2, and then the next driver for them was P11, I believe. What's that? 13 points. We're looking at Apex, and they get 12 points with 5th and 7th. So it is, one driver right now could be absolutely key. The most beautiful man in sim racing, though, will take pole position. It is Enzo Benito in P1. Jake Burton will be looking to indeed turn the tables on what happened with Benito earlier on as well. Hope that Benito has a poor start and gets into the lead. So he is in P2. We've then got Martin van Lozenoord for RHE in 3rd. Chris Lullum then the 2nd of the Redline drivers in 4th. 3 different teams in your top 3. Maxime Briant then for Apex is in 5th. We've then got Patrick Holtzman in 6th spot, the 3rd Redline car. Jamie Fluke then for Apex is in 7th position. Emily Jones in 8th. Like I keep saying, if you've got Emily Jones in your team, you have a chance with this car. Augustin Canapino is in 9th position for Williams Esports. Erhan Yayovsky in 10th spot, then needs a big performance here, needs to back up Van Lozenoord. We've then got Andre Martins for Yaz Heat in 11th spot, Martin Stefanko in 12th position. Isaac Gillison, Michael Romanidis and Marco Pajic round out the drivers that did indeed get their lap times in. We didn't mention RHG. RHG here have got Lozenoord in that top 3. Can he be backed up by Yayovsky? Right now, it is between 3 teams, I would say, for that 2nd spot to get into our finals. Redline look good, but it's then between Apex, it's between RHE, and it's between Yaz Heat as to see who goes through. If there's a bit of carnage, maybe Williams Esports could potentially swing themselves in there, and could Veloce maybe find themselves an opportunity. We don't know. I've mentioned all 6 teams now, very similarly to you, Lewis. All I know that this is going to be a grandstand race. This is absolutely going to be worthy of a semi-final, and oh boy, I am all for it.
This is about as excited that I've been for a semi-final that we've had when we've done the ERWC and the ERL. This could be an absolute thriller. The thing is, though, is can they get through the race cleanly? We know Paddock Hill bites, and if it bites in this race, that could just be day done. I mean, look at where some of these teams are being quite close. The likelihood of there being problems in the first corner are still very high. We're just waiting for Andre Martins to jump onto the grid in that Yaz Heat car down in 11th spot on the left-hand side, just back there. If he gets a good start, and if Jake Burton also gets a good start and takes the lead, this could be good for Yaz Heat. We'll just have to wait and see.
Absolutely. Here we go then, ladies and gentlemen, cars. It's about to go green here. We have got ourselves 15 drivers. Could be 18, but 3 teams, unfortunately, we're driving with 2 today due to other commitments here. We've got ourselves 3 seconds here. It's the semi-finals then of our championship today here on iRacing for the Spring Cup. The ERL Spring Cup. It is green light racing here, and Burton does get a pretty good start here, but Benito will cover off that inside line here pretty well, and ultimately will hold on to that lead there. Then it is, well, Redline absolutely battling here for what would be P3 and P4, but I think Lozenoord is just about going to hold strong here and keep that P4, and he needs P4 an absolute minimum. Runs wide there, and I think Jamie Fluke is potentially going to come through here and take Holtzman's position. It's going to be close through Graham here. He's going to have to go all the way around the outside here, but I think Fluke may have the run. And then we've got the 3rd Apex car, sorry, the 2nd Apex car, should I say. Also involve Emily Jones then side by side with that Apex car. As we come then through the left-hander, up the hill we come in towards that forest section. It's a very, very good start for Redline. RHE then currently in 4th position with that Yaz Heat car in 2nd spot. We still see Redline versus Apex here in the background. And that indeed does stop as we come through the right-hander, and you're bound to see that, aren't you, from the Redline car in that position. You've got 2 of your teammates are in the top 3 here. You don't need to be getting involved in any kind of side-by-side action.
Yeah, they're very good at knowing what to do as the 3rd driver now on that Redline team. They don't need to finish 1, 2, 3 in every single race. They just need to get through it in a decent spot and basically play the backup right now. Williams Esports and Augustin Canapino going on the attack of Emily Jones as we head off of the Grand Prix loop back down towards the start-finish straight, running through the final corner. And like I say, Redline are well in control. Apex are in really good spots, but it's I don't know who's going to be the ones to move up the order and challenge them right now. Veloce are the closest, and they're just not really there. Not a great start from Andre Martins.
No, it's really not a good start here from Martins at all. Dropping down his 12th position, and oh no, Yayovsky's been T-boned off, and that was Martins as well that caused the contact there. That's RHG's days over. It doesn't matter about the penalties received there. If there is going to be any penalties for Martins, for Yaz Heat, it is going to be day over, unfortunately, there for RHG, because they only have 2 cars. This is where it's so important to have 3 cars here, have that bit of insurance in these races, but ultimately it is going to all come undone. This now makes it absolute favourites then for Apex, because as much as Burton is in 2nd spot for Yaz Heat, the 2nd driver is what, in P11 as it stands, so that is 13 points. I think Martins might be looking at a penalty there.
And that's the thing. That's why it might be Yaz Heat's day done as well. Because if he gets a penalty in this, we know they're quite harsh in penalties in the quarters and the semis. Because of how the point penalty system works, the drivers are all very aware of that. Is that penalties can be harsher in these sessions, but more so in the quarters to make sure they move down a fair amount of basically positions on our standings. But if that is a penalty to Martins, like you say, that's Yaz Heat out of it. And then the only real chance then for a team to properly challenge Apex is Veloce with Jones and Gillison in 8th and 10th. But they've not only got to get past Jamie Fluke and then make some progress, they've also got to get past Holtzman and realistically Brient as well. At least one of them does. Martins moves up into 10th position, getting past Isaac Gillison, so a bit of a switch between the two sister teammates.
Tell you what, this is impressive. As much as Redline are, absolutely destroying it right now by being P1, P3, and P6, Apex have had different drivers being their star performer in the 3 races they've been in so far. We've obviously seen Jamie Fluke win a race. Half was battling for a win in the quarterfinals, and now in the semi-finals, Brient is the lead driver of the Apex team. So they really are sharing the load here, and if they all hit it off in a race at some point, they are going to be super, super strong. So once again, once we get to the final, if it is going to be Apex versus Redline, I'm pretty sure this is going 3 races.
Well, with the switch and stuff that's just happened, depending on what the penalty is right now, you just saw it pop up on your screen there, that with the positions as they are, 5th and 7th for Brient and Fluke. That gives them 12 points. Yaz Heat, 2nd and 10th, 12 points, which would mean, obviously, on the tiebreak as well, which goes to the highest position, that it would be Yaz Heat progressing, but we know that they will be under... Oh, actually, I've just seen it on my screen, by the way. They have just picked up 3 penalty points. So, yeah. That one, unless Martins has an outstanding race, closes down the 1.3 seconds, it is to Agustin Canapino, and then even further than that, I think that's them out. Yeah,
it's, again, it just goes to show how important it is about keeping it clean. It's as simple as that. There it is. There's the 3 penalty points for Andre Martins for avoidable contact. That's what we kind of called at the time. And you can see Half here. Half is kind of just dropping back. Half really just want to get involved in anything. And has he made the decision here just to drop out? Or is people being very, very aggressive with him? He does not need to be in this right now. He is taking a wide line there. Wondering if he's just letting cars go. So Williams driving, he drives to the side. It doesn't look like that's actually the case in the end. It did initially there, Lewis. Looked like he was just going to drop right to the back and just not be involved in anything. But it is Johan Half we're talking about. I don't think he has that option in his brain.
Whilst I wouldn't blame him, you don't want to, because then essentially you're making it a 2-car team, just in case. You want to be there, like what Patrick Holtzman's doing, right? Sat there in 6th spot, not really getting involved with Maxime Brient or Jamie Fluke. He's just sat there in 6th, just waiting, just in case Burton does something, or Lullen makes a mistake, or Benito makes a mistake, or anything bizarre happens. Basically just sat there waiting. Because if there is an issue, then Holtzman being in 6th then moves up into 5th or 4th or whatever it is by that point. Then Redline still go 3. Whereas with where Half is, if there is an issue for Brient or Fluke that drops them right down towards the back, Half's not really high enough to take full advantage of that. It could cause some issues and would potentially throw in Veloce or whoever else.
Yeah, I agree with you there to a certain extent. I feel like at the start of the race, you want to keep yourself in there, but at this stage, it's just unlikely there's going to be a mistake there. But battling like this, side by side, absolutely crazy. You just one slight error where you run an inch wider the way when you're on the inside of someone and you force them off. Ultimately, you can give yourself those points that could match what Yaz Heat are producing right now. So I think Apex really have a lot more to lose with Half battling than they have to gain.
Wow, I wonder if, like I say, I wonder if Burton could just, at the moment, and we've seen this before, as I've said earlier, we've seen it with the second chance races, the quarterfinals, semi-finals. We've seen a driver go on to win this race that then obviously doesn't progress. Tobias Pfeffer did it back on the ACC day when he was driving for Logitech GLTC Esports in the ERWC. We saw Niels Nyox do it. We saw Manuel Bianca Lilla do it, although he finished second actually in the semi-final, quarterfinal, whatever, quarterfinal on the RF2 day back at the ERWC. Basically, we've seen it a few times. Burton could win this race. Yaz Heat would progress. You still want to do it for you as a driver, not just for the MVP award, which with Burton obviously either not being here or not doing too well on the other two platforms is kind of redundant for Burton's point of view. But you want to do it for you. And also, to move up in the overall points to potentially progress your positions with the Masters if you're going through.
Yeah, 100%. Every point still counts here. You know, if you finish like third out of everybody here, you're going to gain 20 points. It's 21 points for second overall today and 22 points for first. So, yeah, there's still a lot of points in the offering for these drivers. It's just one point difference per position. So you want to try and gain as much as you possibly can. It does affect the seeding going into the Masters as well. Benito still leads, and I think throw that in there. Benito's a scalp, right? You know, just beating Benito is a massive scalp in terms of sim racing or racing in general. So getting one over someone like that is absolutely what you've got to do. But you've got to be thinking, look, other people are going to make mistakes here. There is the potential for other people to get penalties. Just finish as high as you possibly can.
Well, across the competitions that we've had within the ERWC and ERL, there aren't many drivers that have been on the podium in all three. I know that obviously in the ERWC, Alex Samolyar was on the podium in all three simulators. Enzo Benito has an interesting thing to add to that, though, is that not only has he been on the podium in all three of our simulators, he has won on all three of our simulators. And that's the thing is, like you're saying, it'll be quite a scalp for Jake Burton. You're 100% right. If you can take that win, that is a massive thing to throw down at Redline and be like, look, even if I'm not progressing, I gotcha. And you were dominant in this car at Okayama, and I am showing that that is not going to stand much longer.
Yeah, 100%. And also, when you do go into the final, knowing that you can beat, regardless of whether your team makes it to the final today, when you get to the Masters, knowing that one of your drivers is capable of beating all three of a certain team that you know are going to be in and amongst it, the confidence that instills into your team is huge. Because if you know one of your drivers is capable of that, obviously the other driver is going to lift their levels as well. They're obviously going to try and find something else because they don't want to let the team down. And they also will start to feel, oh my God, we've got a chance here. There's 10 grand on the line. You know, we've got a chance of potentially going there and earning big dollar. So yeah, you're just going to completely change the mindset of your team. As it stands, though, as much as we can talk about this, Benito's still leading. 3 tenths clear of Burton. Lullum still in third spot. Lozenord is in fourth position. Koryayovsky's only down in 16th spot here. So that's, you know, that move that, you know, 3 penalty points was given to Martins earlier on is ultimately going to cost RHG and Yaz Heat as it stands. We've then got Brienne for Apex, Holtzman for Redline, and Fluke for Apex as well, as Lozenord and Lullum looks like they were battling for position there momentarily, but I'm pretty sure, yeah, Lozenord's nowhere near Lullum. Yeah, I was going to say, he's nowhere near him there. That would have been an epic lap if you just gained 3 seconds. But yeah, Lozenord P4 as it stands here. Jones in P8. Jones is going to be thinking, if only I had just one person backing me up today, it could have been such a different result as it stands. As we hold on, what's going on here? So that's Holtzman
defending from Fluke.
Oh, he's defending from Fluke. I thought Fluke had made a mistake there, or I thought it might have been a half battle a bit further back, but actually it's not. And yeah, Fluke maybe trying to gain one position, trying to guarantee it. I would imagine the Apex team probably haven't been told about those 3 penalty points here, because he's absolutely battling for that position as if he needs to get it.
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe not so much of a, but I think it's just an unnecessary risk. We'll see Jamie Fluke try and get to the outside of Hawthorne to go for the switchback, the over-under coming into Westfield. That'd be a brilliant attempt, but Emily Jones is fairly close. By the way, just want to speak of the points when it comes to the overall, is that Yaz Heat's position right now, if they continue on this position, because obviously we're speaking about the overall positions on the day, that's really, really critical. We're saying about the Masters, etc., etc. If they finish in the positions that they are currently running in, then I'm not 100% sure what the maths is. They are, because we're getting the points updated as people are finishing, i.e. from the semi-final, from the quarterfinals, from the second chance races. We do have our points table that's a bit a mucker at the moment. But Yaz Heat, if they finish third on this day, scoring 20-odd points, they are in the Masters, and it will improve their seeds well, put them close towards the mid-pack of the seeds, which I think is very interesting.
Yeah, 100%. And me and Arjuna and yourself have been talking about the seeds and how it could be quite exciting that we may, because it's the Masters are on ACC this time round. In our second competition of the year, it'll be on rFactor 2, and the third, it'll be on iRacing. But to have an ACC specialist team, maybe not have the best rFactor 2 or iRacing cups, and they could potentially be the 12th seed, and they go up against someone like Redline and potentially knock them into the last chance qualifier race straight away. Like, there are so many different factors in this competition because we are using, you know, 3 sims to qualify for 1 sim finale. It just opens up so many different opportunities here, as we are going to see a battle for the lead here. And I think Burton will realise that he's got absolutely nothing to lose here, and he is going to give it his all. Has he saved his tyres, though? Has he leaned on his own experience here and saved the tyres? That was the biggest point he mentioned during our interview earlier on about the tyres. And has he been able to find something a little bit extra here? If we cross the line, it'll be 2 laps to go.
He's out here for some solid banter, is Jake Burton right now, trying to attack Enzo Benito. I'd be very concerned with Chris Lulham right now, whose connection issues do seem to continue through this semi-final in round 3 of the VCO Esports Racing League, because it's not necessarily in this race, because they've got Holtzman there in 6th, that's fine. But if that persists through the final, there goes the move from Burton, looks to the inside, pulls out a little bit. But if they don't have Holtzman there when it comes to the finals and stuff, if Chris Lulham's issues do proceed through the evening, that could be a massive issue for Redline, who, by the way, are looking to get into their 5th consecutive final, and they've only been beaten in a final once, and that was on ACC at the start of the season.
Yeah, they are very much the dominant force within this the VCO competition. Whether it be a Spring Cup, whether it be the World Cup, they have absolutely been the stars of the show, as Burton there flashing his lights. Not a huge fan of that, but, you know, who am I to be judging that? He's just trying to basically put Enzo Benito off, who will not be caring one iota about the flashing lights. He'll just be thinking, yeah, he's just saying hello to me, it's all good. You know, why wouldn't you say hello to me? But he's just holding on to the lead, doesn't really need to push too much here. It's so difficult to make an overtake, and really it is all about turn 1 and turn 2. As we come then towards the second to last corner here at Brands Hatch, but not really quite close enough here to make any kind of inroads, but you need to be almost right underneath that rear wing as they come through this final corner to set yourself up through turn number 1. And again, you're not even looking to make a move through turn number 1. All you're trying to do is you're trying to force them square onto the apex, be a little bit slower on the exit so you can send one up the inside of Druids. But as you can see here, again, not quite close enough. Enzo Benito, although just nearly touching the gravel there, maybe just chucking a little bit of sand up, is ultimately just, yeah, unflappable. Again, we see him be the backup cast on the other sims, right? But when it comes to iRacing, he is absolutely the standout in this team.
I mean, there aren't many drivers that you can find that have the quality of Enzo Benito. And when you start racing with a driver at that level, I mean, all these drivers are as near as makes no difference. Like that level. When I say that, as in like they're separated by like 4 tenths, right? Over a race. And it's just to pass around a circuit like this. Brands Hatch is not an easy circuit to pass. You tend to require a bit of a mistake, like you say, Paddock Hill a little bit slow on exit, or maybe taking a little bit too much of the grass on the run into Sheen's curve, things like that. These are mistakes that someone of the quality of Enzo Benito don't really make. Like, they know how to abuse the racetrack to its fullest extent. And I don't see this happening. Only 2 corners to go.
Yeah, only 2 corners to go here. Enzo Benito is going to hold firm, and he's actually going to take the lead in our most valuable driver here with this performance and another podium. He's going to go ahead of Kevin Sticky, his teammate for Team Redline. Team Redline going to make another final here, ladies and gentlemen. It is Enzo Benito that will take the checkered flag. He takes a big sigh of relief there as he crosses the line. Under a lot of pressure there from Burton for Yaz Heat, but it wasn't quite enough. Lulham will take P3. Again, just absolutely dominating for Redline. With Lozenor then in 4th position, no backup from his teammate because Yuyovsky got taken out earlier on. Brient 5th, Holtzman, Fluke, Jones, Canapino and Hearth then are your top 10. And for me, it is going to be Redline and Apex. Didn't look like any of those 2 teams were really involved in anything too crazy here in terms of any potential penalties. But yeah, it was really, really good stuff there from the Redline crew. Here is your official results, ladies and gentlemen. It is Enzo Benito, P1. Again, will take the lead of the most valuable driver pool as well. Jake Burton for Yaz Heat. What a day he's had today, been sensational, to say the very least, but it wasn't quite enough to win race in the semi-finals here. Chris Lulham then takes P3, again, hoping that his connection holds out for the rest of the day. Martin van Lozenord for RHE Esports then in 4th position. If it wasn't for Yuyovsky getting taken out by Martins, I think we would be looking at RHE being in the final themselves. Maxime Brient then in 5th position for Apex. We've then got Patrick Holtzman in 6th for Redline. Jamie Fluke for Apex is in 7th. Emily Jones in 8th. Augustine Canapino in 9th. And then Johan Hearth takes P10. We've then got Andre Martins, Michael Romanidis. We've got Isaac Gillison, Marko Pajic, Martin Stefanko, and Erhan Yuyovsky rounding out your 16 drivers. Oh, that was an incredible semi-final. We found our 2 teams going through to our final. Oh, Arjuna, you've got a very special final for you and Lewis to cast. I am super jealous.
And deja vu, right? It's Redline versus Apex on iRacing again. I mean, with Coanda not being a part of this series, Lewis, these are basically the 2 biggest iRacing teams there are, so maybe we shouldn't be totally surprised.
I mean, there are a lot of strong teams out there. I mean, to see Apex going through, it's fair enough. I mean, I don't think there's too many teams on there that's essentially almost that bold. Obviously, everyone wants to get through into the finals, but for some of the teams that are in sort of the pool to get through into the Masters that will finish here, 3rd, 4th, you know, the likes of Yaz Heat and stuff, they'll be irritated to miss out on the final. But it doesn't really affect them in the grand scheme of things because Apex have had, to be perfectly honest, a bad season so far, that mean that despite, even if they win today, they're not going through. That's it. It's done. They're finishing outside of the top 12, and we will not see them in a couple of weeks' time in the Masters. So in that sense, it doesn't really change anything. And Redline, who have that guarantee, means that we're just doing this for a bit of banter, for another victory, and for a bit of cash as well.
Yeah, $2,800 on the line today. Again, 10,000 in our Masters. And what a result for Yas Heat there, Luke, who are on the outside of the top 12 coming into this one. But by virtue of finishing 3rd in that semi-final, they get the maximum of the points of the teams not moving forward. So it means 24 points going that way. I think they're looking at maybe even a top 6 seeding next time we're racing on Assetto Corsa in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, could someone bloody tell them the rules, though, that they are supposed to have 3 drivers? Like, how many times are they going to turn up with 2? Because they'll probably turn up with 4 next time. Like, yeah, look, I'm really excited to see when they do have 3 drivers. I'm sure for the Masters, they're going to bring 3 drivers, right? If they don't, then, well, I don't know what to say. But, yeah, when they're at full strength, like, the fact that they've got massive results with 2 drivers today, and they did it also in the World Cup, right? They did unbelievably well in the World Cup with 2 drivers in terms of the iRacing. I think it was ACC as well, right? They did 2 nights with 2 drivers. They're a team to genuinely watch out for when they're at full strength. So expect some big stuff from them. But we've got to talk about Apex, we've got to talk about Redline. They're the 2 teams that have been dominant on iRacing so far. They are going to be our finalists. And well, last time out, it was very clear cut that Redline were the dominant force coming into the final. And on iRacing this time round, it really hasn't been that straightforward. Again, it may look like that in the semi-finals, but the whole day has been split. We've had multiple different team winners, and that sets us up beautifully well because Apex, we know, when it becomes a team game, when it's 1v1, they really do show why they are renowned as one of the best teams out there.
Remember, we have qualifying for the first of our best of 3 finals. Second race of the finals is a reverse grid, so sometimes you see some strategy being played there. If a team knows they're not going to win, they'll flip it around and make sure at least 1, if not 2 of their drivers are on the front of the grid for race number 2. But if we need a 3rd race, which history says that we do, only 1 time have we not gone to the 3rd and final race, we'll do qualifying again. It's all about the pace. While we get the drivers ready to race, I've talked about the VCO Grand Slam this weekend, a 24-hour race at the Nürburgring. Let's talk about a completely different style of 24-hour races. We've talked about Send It, something new from VCO. Something else new is VCO Infinity. It's a 24-hour event, but with 24 45-minute races. Gonna mix things up. When endurance racing started, it was really about the machine versus the clock. Could a car survive the 24 hours before breaking and blowing up? Well, not such a concern anymore. Cars have become so reliable that already endurance races are basically broken up into little sprint blocks of action, and we're going to take that one step further, Lewis, this coming May 7th and 8th, if I've got the dates off the top of my head correct. The first ever running of the VCO Infinity.
Honestly, this is the kind of stuff we've spoken about before. I love my sim racing to be a representation of reality to some degree, fair enough, but they're not mutually exclusive to have that and then to have something a bit more wacky. I love like the slightly more esports take that we've had here with the style of competition, the ERWC and the ERL. To have something like an endurance race like this is something so thrilling. How many times have you turned on an endurance race, got to the 18th hour and thought, this is boring, isn't it? They're all separated by like 40 seconds. That's 3 laps apart. There's nothing going on here. This is something way different. Every hour, starting a new race, 45 minutes long. It's so exciting. I honestly can't wait. Different cars, different tracks constantly, no team on edge. Your stints are how many races you can do before your mind explodes. I love it.
And going back to the point, right, we'll have 5 cars, 5 different tracks. It means 25 possible combinations, but we'll throw one away. And I can tell you that we've decided on the combinations. The cars will be announced next week. The tracks, much like we do for the Pro Sim, much like we do for the Esports Racing League, will only be announced the day before. How do you schedule? Do you schedule the fastest driver in each car? Well, with 1 day's notice, maybe that's not a reality. But Luke, it's all about having some fun. And you've said this before, right? It's not sim racing so much as esports racing.
This is, I've always said this, it's sim racing. We can do whatever the hell we want. It really is that simple. And yeah, I'm really chuffed to be involved with this kind of stuff. The whole bracket 1v1s is amazing. When we get to the Masters in 2 weeks time, it's going to blow people's minds. It really is. Like, again, it's experimental, but we're willing to take a chance, right? Florian is willing to take a chance in entertaining people. It is an entertainment source. And then we've got this 24 45-minute races, which is going to be, I don't know. That's the best thing about it. I actually don't know how it's going to go. Like, it is just such an unknown because no one's ever done it before. So yeah, we can build it up all we like. Do we actually really know what's going to happen? Nope. And yeah, I'm all for it. If I wasn't a part of it, I'll buy a ticket, no dramas.
So one thing to note is that 40 teams will be taking part. We've already had a slew of entries. If you're hearing this and you want to get involved, head to v-c-o.info/Discord, I believe it is, where you can join the VCO Discord, join the fun, join the community, and enter yourself in. If we get more than 40 teams, well, the guys at the behind the scenes have the tough job of trying to whittle it down to just 40 that will be able to run. But again,
like rFactor. Hold on,
that would be great.
Like a stage, and they've got to do like I don't know. ECO's Got Talent. Get people coming out playing the accordion whilst riding a unicycle and stuff like that.
I like the idea, but I think with time, we're limited on time. Only so many hours in the day. Although when you look at Florian Hausby, you wonder how he's able to get all that done. 5 drivers maximum, but hypothetically, we're not going to stop you if you want to do it as a 1-driver solo effort. We've seen at Daytona, people have done that for charity. Most recently, Keenan Kusin, Mr. Aero HD, 867 laps at Daytona over 24 hours. All for the reward of being disqualified the second he crossed the line for not doing the fair chase. So
that's how I met him.
Really?
We were in the same split 2018, and he would not shut up on a microphone. Like, it was just constant. And so I was like, will you shut up, mate? Like, we're all trying to race it. And we ended up becoming team friends. It was ridiculous. Then I found out the story about he does it every year, does it for charity, and it's just snowballed from his achievements are ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And it couldn't be happier for a nicer guy. He's a really nice chap. But there's like a few of them to do it now as well. But yeah, he was the one who really spearheads it.
Yeah, I forget the person who did it first, and I'll try and remember at some point today. But we're not going to stop you from doing that. So very much looking forward to that. And I guess the reason he wouldn't stop talking is he was trying to keep himself awake. That's probably the reality of the situation. Well, I think all the cars are out on track for qualifying. So we'll get to that in a couple of moments' time. Redline versus Apex. Luke, one question for you. I'm not going to ask who's going to win, but the question is, do we have 3 races in these finals?
It's Apex versus Redline, absolutely. I think it's part of the contract, right?
What about you, Lewis?
I think I'm more confident for 3. I know I've been the one that sort of backed maybe the 2 races. We had the 2 races last time. Between these 2, particularly with the reverse grid and how difficult it can be to pass around here, and also how much stronger Apex have been today comparatively to how they were at Okayama, I think we're almost guaranteed a 3-race shootout here. And honestly, this is a really good shot for Apex to sneak a win.
Well, just like the rest of you watching at home, I now get to sit back, relax, and enjoy the final here. I'm going to hand you now to Arjuna and indeed Lewis. Here's the final.
Oh, these finals are so much fun. 1-on-1, will the Apex Racing team be able to stop the dominance of Redline in this Esports Racing League Spring Cup? Lewis, Brands Hatch, we somewhat maligned it when we got things underway, saying that, it's not the easiest to make passes happen, but it's a track which can have plenty of mistakes at. But now when you strip away the amount of chaos that we've seen and the number of cars that are out on track, I think we're still going to see some great racing. Remember what happened to Okayama, Benito going into the side of Juan Bustamante, the amount of chaos that caused. We're never going to be able to relax in this final.
Well, when you look at the previous races, particularly towards the front, with a lot of our bigger teams, when they're sort of in position to move, they know that they're in position, so they don't take any risks. Whereas this is about winning. This is something very, very different, a different dynamic. It's why we see them attacking more, taking on a bit more of a risky move, trying to force the mistakes and such. And it's why this, despite maybe not being the greatest racetrack on the planet or even in the country, it's certainly one that in a final could open it up, especially with its difficulty. I mean, I'd still say we're in for a thrilling final. Almost say, I know that you two were pretty set on Sonoma and such. I don't know. Despite maybe some of the racing through the day not being quite as good, I would probably have voted for Brands.
Well, I mean, I'll open the curtain and say that I'm the one who suggested these two choices of tracks to be put forward to the community to vote. I think they both offer something slightly different. I've seen Sonoma in a V8 supercar be a fantastic race because you're never really fully on throttle through so many of the corners. A little bit too much, you spin out the rear tires, you're sideways, and that's where the mistakes happen. Here, this is just such a high commitment corner, right? For example, down the hill here as you plunge your way up in towards Westfield, we've seen drivers push it a little bit too far onto the grass. It's still a place where you can make mistakes, but it's a place as well where you can barge the door open, even if it's not really that far wide.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of chances to actually send it, i.e. down into Druids, the over-under at Hawthorns down into the inside of Westfield. There's a lot of opportunity to do so, but you can be your own worst enemy around here. The grass, it invites you to take a little bit too much. First laps coming in, though, all 6 of them setting times. I was wondering if Jamie Fluke was a little bit too wide into Graham Hill, but at the moment, first blood goes to Redline with a front row lockout, Benito and Lullum.
Not surprised to see this. We heard it from Jake Burden, right? Lap 1 is the fast lap. So as soon as they're done, don't dilly-daddle. Straight back into pit lane, get that tow. And in fact, the 94 of Patrick Holtzman trying to find his way in front of the Apex Racing team to rejoin his teammates, maybe get a bit of a tow, but he is going to now be released, I do believe. There you go. Holtzman's the slowest of the Redline cars. Maxime Brienne. I mean, I love Maxime, and he's going to somewhat hate me for saying this, but there's a reason why he's an LMP2 specialist. He likes a bit of downforce. Which,
I don't know about you, this car is maybe a little bit different.
Just a little bit. I don't know.
I've always said, to be a master of sim race, to be a master of racing in general, you need to take on multiple disciplines. Get on there, do some rallycross. Get on there and do some truck racing. Hey, why not? Whatever you can do, find it, drive it, and give it a go because you'll learn something from it that will impact you later on. For me, I've always said that I don't know how to drive anything that's not a touring car, a front-wheel drive touring car.
I mean, do you even know how to drive a touring car, though?
I've won a championship. The only 2 championships that I've won in sim racing was in a front-wheel drive touring car and a V8 supercar. So take that one.
Well, you set me up to try and at least throw something at you. To your point about adaptability, this tournament is about adaptability, right? 3 different cars, 3 different sims with 3 very different cars. You go from a GT3 to a open-wheel behemoth, and then to these, if you want to call them touring car-esque kind of machines. Yes, they're not front-wheel drive like modern-day touring cars tend to be, but still plenty of power, still plenty of door-banging opportunity. Slightly different to what we see in the real world nowadays, though, right? Where the crossovers are so much more limited. You've got the likes of Fernando Alonso, for example, who's trying to win the Triple Crown. But, I mean, you don't really see much else. The closest that I can think of is you see Ben Keating, for example, who is a legend, driving GT cars and LMP prototypes in the same race, bouncing between gentleman driver statuses there. But you then look at dirt racing in America, dirt ovals, and the likes of Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, who do a lot of that and then still go and run NASCAR Cup Series racing.
Well, I mean, you got people in real life like Shane Van Gisbergen, who takes part obviously in these, and then runs off to go and race in some GTs, and then goes off to do some rallying and stuff. So there is some openness. So he's obviously taking part in the Australian Rally Championship such. There are a few open sim races in motorsport rather, but that's the joy of sim racing, is that we can all do that.
And unlimited practice. That's the thing that is a benefit and a curse, right? I mean, that's why we love we love the track vote for this, because it means there's no practice spamming. But at the same token, you go and look at World Championships, for example, and iRacing drivers doing 20 to 50 hours of practice, depending on who you talk to get ready for each of the races. You'll see there is a bit of toe games going on. Jamie Fluke getting a lead down into turn 1, but that's not going to be an improvement. And with 1 minute and 20 left, they don't have the time to up and go again. I think qualifying is done, basically. Benito, Lullum, front row. Hearth, Fluke, row 2. Holtzman, Briant, row 3.
Yeah, that's that pretty much sorted.
Well, sorry, I'm going to cut you off for a second. Remember what we saw the last time we were on iRacing for heat stuff. As soon as time expires, that's qualifying. No finishing your lap after the checkered flag.
Yeah, so we have our grid now. Benito, Lullum, Hearth, Fluke, Holtzman, and Briant. Now, that's all well and good. We've seen this car's very tricky to get off the line, and you can see them all here. Look at that. They're all making practice starts. The reason why they're not crawling out to a better point to do a practice start is because you want to start on cold tires, because there's no formation app or anything like that. It's literally just go.
Yeah, no, I think this is important as well. I think this is where, for Hearth and Fluke, winning Final 1 is on the cards mostly at the start. If Benito and Lullum have the front, then that's it. That's it. Remember as well, Benito's horror start in heat number 1 to kick us off for the evening.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what to expect from this one, but obviously, let's not talk about the third race just yet. We know we've got 2. Yeah, we know we've got a guaranteed of 2. At the moment, it's advantage Redline. Whether it'll be in 10 minutes time or not, we just don't know.
Last 2 races have been 15 minutes. We cut it down to the 10 that we saw in our heat. So just 7 laps on the board. But here's a look at the starting grid. Benito, Lullum, front row for Team Redline. Benito, by far, leading the most valuable driver. And like Lewis mentioned last time, in the semi-finals, he's won on all 3 of the platforms. Johan Hearth and Jamie Fluke, row 2, with 3rd and 4th going to them. Patrick Holtzman will line up in 5th alongside Maxime Briant. Thinking of Patrick Holtzman, very frustrated with himself a couple of weeks ago, said that he removed the word elite from his Twitter profile. I think it's fair to say his performances since then, including that BMW Sim GT Cup at the Sebring International Raceway, very much showed why he is so good. 3 cars on the grid, waiting for 3 more to come and join them. Remember, they're slightly staggered as well. For Benito and Lullum, they can't afford any slip-ups on the start here.
And difference on incline as well. It's one of the things that's known about Brands Hatch is that it's uphill. It's also, you don't really see it from this camera, and I know because I've walked across the grid here, it is banked big time. It's so much bigger than you think. And when you're trying to put all of the power down onto the track, it's so difficult to keep the car going in a straight line. The rear end will want to push constantly and slide out from underneath you whilst trying to hold it. You can kind of see there, it just curves down to that right-hand side. It carries us all the way around Paddock Hill as you dive down, bouncing on the curb, bouncing on the limiter. It's a difficult track. It's about as hard as you could get when it comes to an actual track to a standing start.
635 horsepower from a 5-liter, I believe it's a V8 engine. 0 to 100 or 0 to 60, 3.2 seconds. So they will reach a pretty significant speed as they plunge down the hill into turn 1 to get things underway. Still waiting though for time to expire in this brief hold, but we are ready to go. Once more, it's Apex and Redline going into battle in the finals here. The Esports Racing League. The Spring Cup is ready to come to a close. 2 weeks from now, we'll go to the Masters, but seeding will be determined here today. Redline versus Apex, and the finals are underway. Good start from Lullum. Benito once more gets bogged down in the rev range around the outside. Here comes Hearth, here comes Fluke as well. On the curb goes Enzo. Benito, Chris Lullum leads them into Druids.
Wow, great start from Apex to get up into 2nd and 3rd. Instantly on the defence is Jamie Fluke, trying to work his way through. Patrick Holtzman might actually allow Maxime Briant. They're going to go side by side just to hold him back, essentially. You'll see Holtzman dropping behind his teammate right now, but that was about as good as it could have gotten for Apex.
Do you see that visual separation between, I know what you meant, between Apex and Redline as they come down then through Surtees? if Brient is able to get past Holtzman or Benito in the early stages, you'd expect him to try and affect the move, but if he can't, then maybe he'll lay back, and then the pressure goes on the shoulders of the Frenchman Johan Hart to try and get the move done. Look at how already he's putting the pressure onto Lulham as they sweep themselves down the hill.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, this is the fascinating thing about having a reverse grid for the next race, is that they will play their own little bits to sort of settle themselves, to get themselves on the front row of this grid. Right now, things finish as it stands, as we know, with the first and fourth for Redline, the second and third for Apex. They're both on 5 points. The advantage would go to Redline. Johan Hart doesn't want any of that, as he's already very close to attacking Lulham for the lead. But I know it's only a 10-minute race, but after that chat with Jake Burton, tyres are critical in this race.
Yeah, they will fall off a cliff. We haven't really talked about your track conditions either, but that might be something to take a note of. It's 36 degrees Celsius, so it's not that warm, but I can tell you from first-hand experience driving it in the V8 Scots League that they're very much short shelf life. You get the best out of it at the start, and from there you slip backwards. Fluke is slipping back into the clutches of Benito, who has a look down the inside of Surtees. Fluke left the door open but covers him off. Plenty to play for here. Hart needs to get in front of Lulham. Fluke has to stay in front of Benito.
Yeah, that was a good little look from Benito into Surtees. The problem is, if you do kind of get that lunge done, you've got a slow exit from Surtees on that run towards Hawthorne we've just been through. There's a mistake, though, from Jamie Fluke back onto the racetrack, and then Benito's going for it. Got to be careful not to pick up a penalty, though.
Yeah, penalty points will really change the game, and unlike what it's been like in the first 2 rounds of this Spring Cup, penalty points is the first tiebreaker when we determine the results for each of these finals races. That was a slip wide down through Hawthorns for Jamie Fluke as they came in towards Westfield, excuse me. Holds on now, but almost a full second back from Johan Hart. There's not a major draft advantage in this car like you would, for example, get in an open wheel machine, but every little bit helps, especially when you're trying to defend, and Jamie Fluke is almost out of that drafting range.
Back up to our race leaders. Johan Hart right on the rear end of Lulham. You know he's going to go for a dive at some point. Lulham's a little bit deeper to Druids, a little bit of contact as well just to unsettle him. That was not ideal, suboptimal some might say, but obviously Lulham's going to continue to lead. That's dropped them right back into the clutches of Fluke, going for the cutback and the run towards Surtees.
Now can he switch around and get the drive off the corner? Smart racing from Lulham, who's not going to give him that opportunity. Look rearwards, there's that awkward driving stance that Luke was talking about earlier, but Lulham gets the good drive, talking with his teammates as well. Now do remember that Johan Hart, Rallycross World Champion, knows what it's like to get his elbows out here at Brands Hatch. Finished second in the Brands Hatch round, the inaugural Brands Hatch round in your iRacing Rallycross World Championship late in 2021. He's not afraid to get the elbows out if he needs to, but you've got to do it smart. You've got to do it like Austin Cindric did at the Circuit of the Americas a couple of weeks ago in NASCAR.
How good is this? All 6 of them separated by absolutely nothing. 1.5 seconds over all of them. 2 of the biggest teams on the platform going toe-to-toe here this evening. It is absolutely superb. Johan Hart's super close once again, just not quite close enough. You don't really dive down the inside the paddock hill. Luke, and you were saying this earlier as well. You're more trying to line up a move down into Druids. But unfortunately for Hart, Lulham is so good on the exit corners. It's why he's kind of diamonding it off at Druids, coming in for that late apex, which was where the contact happened before, going for that final bit to get a straight drive off the corner to allow him to put down the 600 plus brake horsepower straight down onto the road, especially when the tyres are struggling.
So main passing opportunities, Druids turn 2, Surtees, which are sweeping around right now. If you get a good run out of here, you can have a look at Hawthorns, but it requires commitment, and it's more about setting up a potential pass into Westfeld. The penultimate corner, Sterling's, you can try, but all you're doing is inviting some contact, and the final corner I don't think is a passing opportunity either. So you're limited on passing places, you're limited on time. Remember, we're expecting 7, at most 8 laps. If by some miracle the 10 minutes adds 1 lap to our total as we ride on board with a Frenchman. Half the race done, Hart is running out of time.
Oh, and he's in deep into Sterling's there. You could see him backing it into the corner. That would have cost him a couple of tenths. I thought he was going to clear Lulham off the road. That was somewhat dicey. to be honest. You can see this is potentially a little bit of the tyre issues as well. It is a brutal track for tyre usage. You are constantly on the limit. I mean, the only actual proper straight is the one down towards Hawthorns. All of the other ones out of that are either far too short to be classified as a straight or just not really one anyway. They're all slightly bending, curving, and you're putting power all the way through that entire back section of the track from Hawthorns all the way around past Ingledale up towards Stirling. You're essentially turning for basically all of it or wrestling the car down. You just don't have any let up.
Have we ever seen a final this close? All 6 cars, 1.7 second splits them.
No, not this close. I mean, the RF2 one on the IRWC was fairly close in a sense, but that was more of the wheel race at Silverstone.
Where did that get thrown into the mix?
Did I say ISOWC? I mean the ERWC.
There we go.
It's all a lot of letters, mate. It's all a lot of letters. Every sim racing series is just a load of letters right now.
That's true. Remember, again, top 12 at the conclusion of the full cup in the overall ERL points. The points across the cups get amalgamated together as Benito almost runs into the rear end of Jamie Fluke, make it to what should be an in-person Esports Racing World Cup 2 in 2023, the start of February. More to be announced about that in the future. Look at Fluke, though, just running the middle of the road as Benito tries to jink to the inside. Fluke knows that if he falls back, that's any chance gone. He's trying to make sure that Johan Harv has something to fight for.
But this is the thing, is that for Benito and for Harv, they can almost attack into whatever corner they want because it's their teammate behind, and that's critical. Particularly from Benito's point of view, that he can really attack Fluke. Doesn't necessarily need to, but it might try and be essentially sort of a preemptive strike. But even if he does get through here, then if Harv overtakes Lullen, then Apex Racing win anyway. And so it's kind of like it's not an easy position to be in. The critical thing is just not to rack up penalties. Do you want me to give you the commentator's curse, even though I don't believe in it? Well, I'm not sure how many finals we've had so far when it comes to our heats in the finals, but I'm pretty sure in most of them we've had penalty points be dished out to at least one team. We haven't had any today in our finals. I'm not so sure that's going to continue.
Yeah, you're right. No, I think this is the first time that we're actually going to have a heat without any a final race without any sort of penalties. I think every other final that we've had so far, has had penalties, and we haven't seen so much fighting in terms of side by side. But I am tense right now. I am jittery for what might happen. I think we are going to get the white flag at I think we got 2 more to go. I think 8 laps. The pace that these leaders are setting means that we'll cross the line. Now, there we go.
So close.
It's so close, but that white flag, I think, is basically confirmation. This is the final chance for Johan Hart to have a look. Does he look into Druids? A little bit too far behind. He's going to have to try and sling it, and there he goes. This is a place where you can run multiple lines in Rallycross. Johan Hart tried to do that, but Lullen closed the door firmly on him.
He's just trying to send it anyway. I mean, maybe he might put Lullen off, maybe he might push him out, might have to take the risk to go out a little bit wider to try and hang on. It's 100% for Half that he's got to take that risk. He's got to look, he's got to send it. Hey, shout out. But I'm just not so sure as to where those opportunities are going to come. The braking zone into Hawthorns isn't long enough. The braking zone into Stirling isn't long enough. The braking zone into the final corner isn't long enough. And that's the issue. Druids was the one to send it. And I'm just not sure he has any more opportunities. And they might well be looking to try and capitalise on their positions for the second heat.
Well, at this point, if you're Jamie Fluke, do you play the games? Do you slip backwards? Do you let Benito and Altman go past you? Would they even try and let that happen? Or Lullen on the grass just about wrangles control of his Redline machine. But round the penultimate corner they go. Lots of pressure, but Lullen has soaked it up like a sponge. He'll round himself through the clock curve to secure victory for Redline in race 1 of our finals. Cool as a cucumber. Redline strike first.
Well done to Chris Lullen. That would have been the hardest 10-minute 6-car race that he's ever done. That was super on edge. But obviously with the reverse grid now, I'm kind of, as much as I like to see some of the games being played, Arjuna, I'm kind of glad that we didn't see any of those games being played. These two teams are basically just like, let's win this properly. Let's just see who is the best team. No games, no gimmicks. Who's the best?
So here's those results. 6 cars split by 2.2 seconds. By far the closest final that we've had since we got underway on this journey with the first running of the Esports Racing World Cup at the end of January. But it is Chris Lullum who wins again. Johan Hart, Jamie Fluke just behind, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, 1 + 4 comes out on top of 2 + 3 by virtue of the better finishing position. Chris Lullum gets the point for Redline. Get ready for this inverted race 2 of the finals. Brit and Holtzman will line up alongside one another. It's going to be crucial though, Lewis. Benito has got to figure out these starts.
Yeah, I mean, he would be surely sat there praying that, it's like, oh, come on, couldn't we have done a rolling start? That would have been sick. But alas, no, it is a standing start, which I am all for, because there is a different level of skill in a standing start. It's something which some drivers seek more, some drivers aren't so good at, and that's what we're seeing today. I am all for it. It's opened up a different avenue for Apex to try and take advantage. Considering the race 1 start we just had, I'd be pretty okay if I was in Apex's point of view right now.
Let's bring in Luke Crane for a moment, who was watching on, I'm sure, on the edge of his seat. What a final that was, Luke, and it was so close, but clean as well. That's what we love to see.
Yeah, not so clean where I am, because I made some very exciting noises in that final corner where Lullum nearly binned it. He nearly did a Tauscher, but the opposite way around with an actual driver error. So, yeah, that was very, very exciting stuff. We go into the second race with Apex on pole, which is perfect. Oh boy, good luck, lads. This is going to be a classic.
Poor Mitchy Tauscher. He is never going to live that down, especially if we keep referring to it as the Tauscher. But here is that starting grid. Reverse, pretty simple. Brit, Holtzman, Benito, Fluke, Hart, Lullum. This time around, Redline and Apex flip-flopping on which side of the grid they're on. How will that factor into the swing of things? I will note as well, Hart has been pretty consistent on the starts, and I'm not totally shocked about that. I keep mentioning his rallycross experience, but guess where else you got to balance the RPM and the clutch as you try and roll yourself off the line?
If I was looking at this, this is just for future reference when it comes to this. When you know it's a standing start, you know you're good enough in the races and stuff. Yep, fair enough. Pace, critical. If there's one thing that I'd practice more so than anything else, standing starts. I'd literally spend 2-3 hours just doing standing starts, which would drive me absolutely crazy, by the way. But it's showing how important it is. If Johan Hart gets the same level of start that he's had, though, in the previous, to be honest, few races that we've done, we know he's good in these starts. Going from 5th, could start attacking, even to get onto the podium in this. If they can do that, then Apex are surely in the most advantageous position. It all kind of depends, though, on Maxime Brit also nailing his start and trying to hang on. Honestly, this stuff is not easy. We'll be talking about a very different topic when we get down into Druids, I'm sure.
Oh, for sure. Remember, Benito is behind Maxime Brit. Behind him is Johan Hart. So Hart might have to dodge Benito. On the outside, Patrick Holtzman was good on the off the line, but then didn't fight too hard in that final. I think trying to preserve some good starting spots in this reverse grid. But oh, if you're not tense, I don't know what is in your veins, because my blood is pumping and I'm ready for the second race of the finals. Will we go to the best of 3 final round, or will Redline sweep their way to another victory? We're about to find out. Green flag flies, and it's a good start from that outside of Patrick Holtzman. Brit not getting the best of launches. Can Benito hold on? No, because Fluke and Hart are settling into their rhythm. Here comes Lullum trying to make it 3 wide, and there's that rallycross experience. Johan Hart says, no thank you, I'm holding on to that one, and he squeezes down the inside of Benito.
Yeah, that was proper Brands Hatch 101 there. You get a bad run out of Paddock Hill, you pull it straight over the inside, almost whether there's a car there or not. At the moment, it is Redline advantage issues, though. Oh, that was a little bit dicey from Hart.
Yeah, but that's all's fair in love and war. Benito giving him just enough space to survive, and Lullum's going to barge his way past Jamie Fluke, but outside might give him a bit more momentum. Remember as well that if Holtzman and Benito hold on to 1st and 3rd, that is done. It doesn't matter. Hart and Fluke have got to get the hurry on. Brit needs to try and find a way past former Red Bull Racing driver as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been a great start from Holtzman in this race, but it's kind of rough for me to say this, considering how close they all were, and this is like the roughest way of putting it. It's the same as saying that Enzo Benito is the 3rd driver on RF2 and stuff, but Patrick Holtzman's been their 3rd driver today, which fair enough. Like the third driver by a 10th, fair enough, is what it is. But he is their third driver. Now, considering some of the issues that he's had recently, not over the last couple of weeks as you were alluding to, but some of the issues that he's had prior to that, I kind of wonder if that might be playing on his mind right now, especially if there is a mistake from him in this race. Then that is really going to open the door for rFactor to get in the mind game. Defensive move from Benito might be down the inside of Brit as well.
No, I think Brienne able to hold off as Hearth tried to go on the offense. If you want a bit of fun trivia, you want to know who else Patrick Holtzman can count as a former, I guess, employer. I don't think that was the right word, but a former team that he's raced for? The Apex Racing team.
So you're racing, yeah, I mean, there's always different value when you're racing up against your old mates, in air quotes. A team where it's just sort of like you look at livery being like, I used to race that. There is different value in that battle. It's kind of regardless as to whether the split was a fair decision between the pair of them, it was agreed upon and unanimously, or whether it was a bit more ambiguous as to where that came from. Regardless of that, you still like looking at that being like, yeah, no, if there's a team that I have to beat on this grid, RHG, fair enough, that's a 50-50, Veloce, Yazzie, that I have to beat it, have to.
Patrick Holtzman, not totally, unfamiliar with this sort of car, raced in the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup for a couple of seasons and actually won the sprint race at the best track in the world.
Not first.
Oh no, because the Porsche Esports Super Cup never goes there. Oh! Huge mistake! Holtzman wide, here comes Briette, there goes Hart trying to squeeze his way past Benito. That might be the first penalty point, but it might be academic because Fluke has to check himself up. Lullum picks up the pieces.
Yeah, I mean, regardless, like as Brienne went for it because of Holtzman's mistake, regardless, I think that is pretty much set because as much as Fluke is in that fourth spot at the moment, there is way too much damage on the front end. Benito will surely pick up that spot fairly soon. Half's out of the race. It looks so positive for a second there, and they had to take the risk. I'm going to be fair to Apex. They had to go for it, and you are going to see the same defense from Fluke. He's going to have to go for it on his defense. Let's take a look at the replayers. There is the issue.
And, Benito's always moving right. He does move a little bit more right, but that door was always closing, and Hart tries to bundle his way through. Good look there as Hart does have to retire. There you see the front engine cover on Jamie Fluke's car is gone, but he's actually pulled away from Enzo Benito. It might come down to race control. If race control says, all's fair in love and war, we're not going to penalize that one, we're going to a race 3. Otherwise, it's Redline to lose here.
Now, what do you think? If you were race control right now, I'm not saying what do you think race control will do, but is that a penalty to you?
You remember what happened during the BMW Sim GT Cup, right? Where Holtzman moves right under braking to try and stop Fildenez in the BS competition car. It was similar, but the counterpoint to that is Benito had already angled his car rightwards into Druids, which is one of the many lines that you can take. I think if I'm race control, that's a penalty to me, but I'm glad I'm not.
I agree. The thing is that if I'm going to apportion blame to any driver for why that incident happened, for me it's Half. Half is the driver that caused it. We'll take another look.
Yeah, this is what I want. This is what I want. This is the best view as well, because up above you get that indication. You can see Benito has already moved to the right, but there's
less obvious on that side though.
But it is still also slight, but there is a movement to the right that I could perceive there. And that's why Johan Hart is done, because it looks like the suspension broke on the Armco when he hit the wall there. From up above, maybe we can go super slow-mo here as well as we zoom in down on the track. It's so slight, but I think we can see it. I think maybe a look on board with Benito will clear things up. And the steering inputs, crucially.
Seeing it from that angle, I'm more convinced about it. I was more convinced about the Hart thing, but then sort of looking at it from there, yeah, that's not an easy one. And yeah, like we say, I am glad I'm not race control.
Yeah, it might not matter. Holtzman looks to the inside as Benito closes on Fluke as well. Holtzman lights up the rear tires. They're not going to be pretty happy. That might cost him a couple of tenths the next couple of laps. Brent holds on. Fluke now only half a second in front of Benito as Holtzman runs wide again.
Yeah, this is going to be a tough battle, not only for the race lead, but also to keep an eye on the Fluke Benito battle, because regardless of penalty, these are the ones that are going to decide this. If Brient can hold off Holtzman, if Fluke can hold off Benito, then Apex will win this finals race and will take it to 3. If either one of them loses a position, or if they get that penalty from Johan Haaf, then that is it. It is game done. Redline win for their 4th final in VCO competition in this style of racing. So it's very touch and go. Like I said, I'm not in race control, but I am glad that I am a spectator of this.
We'll note as well that the Unicorns of Love weren't thrilled with the level of aggression showed by Redline in the first day of this Esports Racing League Spring Cup when we were at Misano on Assetto Corsa Competizione. But again, it's one-on-one. You expect it to be a little bit more physical. You expect them to lean on one another. 2 laps to go this time around. I think the thing to be watching for really more than Brient and Holtzman is Fluke and Benito, because the amount of damage that Jamie Fluke has to his car might be academic as to whether this battle happens. And that's aggressive, and Brient with the up and under sees him coming and then tries to slam the door shut on him. Great racing, but look at the background. Fluke really being pressured by Benito.
I am going to say this, that was sensational from Maxime Brient. I love a good up and under, and that was so red. He played Holtzman so well down into Druids. Now that doesn't mean that Holtzman's not going to come back stronger.
Benito.
Now Lulham's on the scene.
Benito's gone through. It's academic. This doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Redline on the course to another victory. Now, I think the level of damage is hurting Jamie Fluke so significantly that there wasn't much that he could do. But one corner, one incident has changed the complexion of this race. Have a look at the replay. Oh, and he gets off into the grass, and that's some good car control to hang on to it.
Yeah, it was the curb. It was going up on that curb on the exit of Surtees. It comes up and over the crest, which it is quite it doesn't kind of look it, but it is quite a violent change as you come up and over that crest. It's enough to lift off, especially if you're going over that curb on the exit. Typically, that is the touring car line, because you're in a front-wheel drive. Yeah, you just absolutely pin it and bang over the curbs as if they don't exist, because let's be honest, it's a touring car, no one cares. Whereas in these, you have to be a lot more respectful. That could be it, and today done for Apex. We might be looking at a second consecutive 2-0.
Doesn't matter about the penalties. Here, if you're Holtzman, you allow him back off. Brient can win. It doesn't matter at all. Final lap of the Spring Cup regular season. 2 weeks from now, we go to the Masters. I'll correct myself from what I said earlier, where the seeding is still up for grabs. No, it's not. Redline, by far your #1 seed. Apex were already mathematically eliminated before we started racing today. It's been about bragging rights. It's been about the prize money on the line here today as well. Redline domination continues in the Esports Racing League.
And like I say, they are the dominant force. It's their 5th consecutive final, and they are looking for yet another win. The only team that's managed to beat them is Unicorns of Love on ACC. And when we look at this competition, Unicorns of Love and Redline are the only teams, based on that have ever won in this series. We'll have to wait and see whether that will change. But right now, it's Redline.
There, though, is Maxime Brient jamming away to whatever he's listening to. He will win in race 2 of the finals, but take a bow, Team Redline. 2 in a row where we've only needed 2 races in these finals, and Team Redline have asserted themselves as the best that sim racing has to offer. What a dramatic day. It came down to one corner, and a reminder, 2 weeks from now, there's still more action yet to come when we head back to Assetto Corsa Competizione for our one-on-one Masters Showcase. Oh my days, Lewis, you can never script these events, but we are so lucky that we get to sit here and shout about them. We are the luckiest people in the world.
Yeah, 2nd consecutive 2-0 for Team Redline. If there's any team that I'd want to be a part of, I'd love to be a part of Team Redline. It would be fantastic, all the success and stuff. I don't know how they keep doing it, but they keep doing it. For Apex, I'm going to say, they still need to. They might have a little bit of head in hands moment, but they need to keep their hold their head up high. I think they've done brilliant today. They have fought Redline. Now, yes, the last time it did go, to the 3rd race. This time, fair enough, it didn't. But the show they put on, the amount they put into this, they obviously went for the gaps when they had the opportunity. They raced as hard as they possibly could. I think they did everything they could. It's just Redline are the dominant force.
So we are still waiting for race control, but we don't expect it to change the game. Luke Crane thinks slam dunk on Johan Hart, doesn't expect it to change there. No further action, so there we go. Officially, Redline 2 consecutive 2-0 victories in these finals. Maxime Brient wins to close off day 3 of your Esports Racing League Spring Cup. Take a breath. Take a breath, and we'll bring back in Luke Crane. Luke, I mean, you thought it was a slam dunk penalty, but ultimately it didn't really matter. Redline win once again.
Yeah, but I feel like Half has made a very rash decision there. Holtzman makes a mistake, which, again, you guys called that 2 laps prior to that. You were thinking, is it going to be in his head that he was third driver all day? He was put under some severe pressure and he cracked. Maxime Brient gets into the lead, and Half, I just don't think he needs to be there. Yeah, everybody checks up in front, but he was 3 car lengths back. He had plenty of time to react. It's one of the very best in sim racing. Like, you can't, I don't think you can give an excuse to someone of Half's ability. But if there's one thing Half has been plagued by, and don't get me wrong, one of the very best on this platform is rash decision making. And I think that's what's cost the Apex team this time round, and something they will definitely learn from. Team Redline, would they have probably won the 3rd race? I think they would. I just think they've got the bit between their teeth with this format. They've been the ones that have really nailed that format. Again, we've been talking over the past couple of weeks, past couple of months, that there are going to be teams that find the meta to win these events. Redline, they're just, no one seems to be able to stop them, apart from Unicorns and Love on ACC, but everything else is just red.
And even though, Lewis, I think to some degree, Redline have, split up their driver rosters in the past, right? Kevin Siggy, maybe, Race Room and then a couple of other platforms, but Beneke, Vecchio, and, go on and on there, focusing just on iRacing. Even just having that experience with the other platforms is good, but the fact that they've been able to transfer that over to the likes of Enzo Benito is very, very important.
Yeah, I mean, I say I don't really know what's up for this team. Like, where do they go from here? Is what I mean. Like, what's the next thing that they could do? Obviously, we had that very interesting interview from the sporting director of Team Redline, Mark Prinzing, a bit earlier on. But still, it's just where the goal is to be better than last year, which is the same goal for every team, surely. But it's just, what competition can you do? Is there another platform that you can spread onto? Because they seem to be winning no matter what the platform is.
Absolutely. Just waiting for them to come and join us for a post-race chat. Feels like we're doing this way too regularly, all but 2 times. Have we had a... Yeah, no, and we got all of them standing by. So I tell you what, let's not dawdle.
Hold on, Lewis. No, hold on. You make me sick, Lewis. There, you get a chance to talk to Enzo, and I don't, and you're going to come out with your board of them.
Okay,
I'm gone. I'm done.
You send me the question. You send me the question.
You guys crack on. I'm sulking.
Let's bring in then Patrick Holtzman, who brought up Team Redline in that race number 2 to finish in 2nd. Patrick, bit of a scary moment for you through turn number 1, but you were able to survive. Talk to us what was going through your head right then.
Yeah, thank you very much, first of all. It was a bit of a shaky performance from myself today. I was carrying a little bit of a handicap. I couldn't hear on one of my ears, so that made things really tricky, and the error ratio was a lot higher than it would usually be. So I made a little mistake there. There was not much else I was thinking. Like, I immediately thought I have to get him back, and I had a couple chances. I couldn't slow the car down. But yeah, it was enough at the end, thankfully. But yeah, big thanks for my teammates. They did amazing today, and they carried me a little bit. I'm happy about that.
Now, the last time we went racing on iRacing in this style of competition was obviously in the ERWC back on day 3, where Redline had so much control over the day. Like, you were so fast on that, but still went to 3 races. Did you expect this one to come to 2 races, despite Apex looking stronger today, like really right up there with you?
I didn't even expect to go to the finals today. Like, the team call was, we have to prepare for 24 hours of Nürburgring, and so we had minimal practice. Started first with my first laps like an hour or 2 before the event today, and So considering that, I'm even more amazed by the team with how it can perform even on a very short notice. And yeah, it's just mind-blowing time and time again how good this team performs.
And so, sorry, Patrick, I know you were a little bit frustrated with your performance a couple of weeks ago, but you consistently still seem to find the results, and hopefully, even with your handicap today, you've shown why you are one of the elite. Congratulations, and we'll see you for the Masters in a couple of weeks' time. Best of luck for the 24 hours of the Nürburgring as well. Let's bring in, the man that Luke Crane is very sad that he's not talking to right now. Let's bring in Enzo Benito, who is now the only driver in the Spring Cup to have finished on the podium in every single one of our platforms. Enzo, I mean, you're showing that adaptability might be your middle name here.
Yeah, no, I just enjoy driving. That is what it is. If I'm quick, then I'm happy. No, but I'm just putting in the hours. Obviously, it's not like I go straight in and I'm just practicing. So, but luckily, as I always say, I have a great team on my back, on my shoulders, and they help. And yeah, we just won again. And what can we say? It was great.
When it comes to these 1v1 style of races, obviously Redline at the moment are 4-1. The only team that's beaten you is Unicorns of Love back in the start of this season. Now, considering the Masters is all about one-on-one combat, and you've been so strong, obviously it seems like you're carrying an awful lot of confidence in there. But are there any hurdles that you're expecting from the Masters race?
Well, the Masters race is going to be again on ACC. That's the weakest. Well, when I say weakest, it's not like... Well, we are a little bit behind, obviously, to Unicorns of Love that beat us twice, I think, right now, like the first time. But yeah, last time we got actually really close, and we almost managed to get it. But next time we will be even more prepared, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, these 1v1s, we are, they are mega fun. Sometimes you have to risk it. So, I mean, yeah, if a dive bomb or stuff like that happens, it's normal short race. And but that's, I guess, where the fun part is also. You don't see this very often. And I think it's a great format. I really enjoy driving it. And we are doing very well. So, yeah, let's now focus back on ACC.
Thanks for joining us, Enzo, and looking forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks' time. Luke had to jump in there. Let's jump, though, to Chris Slalom. 5 races today, 5 podiums as well. Chris, we know you more as a GT driver, especially here on iRacing, but you seem to adapt to this car very well. What's been the biggest challenge for you? Maybe those starts? You weren't terrible on the starts, though. Yeah, no, the starts, I got worked out pretty quickly. I think that was definitely strong. Like, in the first race, for sure, not many people had it worked out. Where I gained a few positions in the heat race as well. But no, the main difference between these V8 beasts and the GT3s has to be the braking. Obviously, the lack of ABS and all the micro adjustments you have to do throughout the lap. It's a lot more challenging and a lot more focus is required. But no, it also makes for really good racing as well.
We did see a couple of technical issues potentially coming when it comes to your network connection in the semi-finals. Is that kind of playing on your mind going into the finals? You looked very relieved after that first finals race.
Yeah, no, I never really experienced it before, but I knew already in that, I think it was the semi-final, I had some issues, but we already worked out that even if I did blink out and disconnect from the server, we would still be through. So it was all fine, but no, it was on my mind, but you have to put these things behind you.
Well, Chris, I mean, Redline continues to go from strength to strength. I have no doubt you're probably racing this weekend in the 24 hours of the Nürburgring, so get your laps in and best of luck at the Green Hell.
Thank you. I'll see you then.
Chris Slalom joins us once again here for our post-race interviews, but that wraps it up. Redline again. And Luke, I mean, heading to the Masters now, new format, so those who have joined us so far on this journey will still have some surprises left. We still got some surprises left up our sleeve.
Yeah, look, the 1v1 format that we're going to go with the Masters, it means if you're caught slipping straight off the bat, you're in trouble. Like, you can be beaten by anybody. It's the top 12 teams. So yeah, we've seen teams start slow. We've seen it today, actually, to be fair. Not from Redline, but we've seen a couple of the big hitters. Like Apex didn't look overly too strong at the start. I know Fluke went out and won, but they didn't look like they were the favorites to get to the final, let's say. They're not even going to be in the major. But what I'm trying to say is, yeah, you start slow, you have a bad first race, you are instantly down into that last chance race. It is as simple as that. You could be knocked out straight away, so you just cannot afford to do so. So it's a really intriguing format. It's a completely different format because it's effectively like a slow burner, the format we have today, where top four teams, you get a second chance qualifier. So if you have a pretty bad race and you're one of the very top teams, you're still more than likely going to go through in the heat races. It just isn't the case when it gets to the 1v1s.
Lewis, I mean, I think the big story out of today isn't the Redline domination, but the Unicorns of Love exponential improvement, both on rFactor 2 and now on iRacing as well.
Yeah, if I'm one of these bigger teams, potentially even just on the iRacing platform, looking at the finals day, if I'm the likes of Apex, if I'm even Redline or RHG or Williams, these teams that we kind of expect to go strong on iRacing as well, I'd be looking over at those Unicorns of Love and thinking, damn, they are looking pretty strong. And as I say, as a team that's growing, that's figuring it out, the partnerships and stuff, they are looking, obviously, potentially. I think to us, we're all kind of in agreement that they are essentially the strongest team on ACC. Fair enough. But now that they're not a million miles away from high places in the semi-finals, realistically, in both RF2 and iRacing, this is a bit concerning some of the other teams. And I say that in a sense of I know they got knocked out in the quarters, but their pace today was way better than where they finished. And that's a really, really critical thing for them, a massive boost in confidence.
Their age as well. Sorry,
yes,
Arjuna, their age. Look at teams like Team Redline. As much as, they are still very young men in terms of age, what they've achieved so far and how long they've been around is a long time. It is a young man's game these days in sim racing, to be completely honest with you. The average age is what, 16, 17 years old? It is super young. Where is their ceiling? I wouldn't be able to give you that. It would have been the first time that a lot of their drivers would have ever touched rFactor 2 in a competitive nature. And very similarly with iRacing, a lot of these drivers would maybe not have even had the subscription on iRacing. They don't have jobs and stuff. Like, it's the only subscripted service there is, right? So it's viable that they may not have that much experience because they're not paid for doing a job before this, apart from a paper round, for instance. But you're not earning enough to be able to go and buy all the cars, all the tracks and stuff. So now being a part of a sim racing team where you're going to be obviously compensated for that, you're going to be given the tracks that they're just going to get faster and faster and faster. I don't even think they need to go out and get some iRacing specialists or some rFactor 2 specialists. I think they've got the basis. I think they've got the foundations of something very, very special. And it might not be this year, it might not be next year, but in a couple of years' time, Unicorns of Love could dominate this scene very similarly to what Redline are doing right now.
Well, the Spring Cup is done. The Masters are still yet to be finished, but the points have been paid out. 2 weeks from now, we'll go to Assetto Corsa Competizione for the $10,000 one-on-one Masters. So much fun. You'll see what it's all about. Let's recap, though, where we lie after 3 days or 3 rounds of action, starting with your most valuable driver. It is Enzo Benito. That is your Spring Cup most valuable driver, with podiums across of all 3 platforms. Shout out to Kevin Siggy, only in action for 2 of the days, but there's the performance from him to get in second. Redline, 4 drivers inside this top 5. That's the scale of their dominance in the Esports Racing League. Who will be racing, though, in 2 weeks' time? Remember, seeding will come into play to make up the initial bracket, but here are the 12. Redline, first seed, RAG second, and in order, Unicorns of Love, Veloce, Williams, the BS Competition guys, Yasheed, Burst Esports, Triton Racing, Arnage Competition, and squeaking in, Team Fordzilla and Jean Alesi Esports Academy. 1 point split Jean Alesi and Rocket Simsport when all things were said and done. All Rocket Simsport needed was 1 more position before they bade us goodbye in today's race to work their way into the Masters. But with that said, we're done for the Spring Cup. Again, 2 weeks from now, Assetto Corsa Competizione. Make sure to follow us on social media to help us choose where we go racing with a GT3 car once more. Do remember, plenty more in the VCO esports world that is going on right now. We've announced VCO Send It. We've announced VCO Infinity. Stay tuned on social media for more details about that and to order your copy of the first esports racing print magazine. And also the Nürburgring 24 hours on iRacing, a VCO Grand Slam with a physical trophy on the line for all of your class winners, alongside iRacing credits for those watching on Twitch. So if you're not already following us, make sure you hit that button. 24 hours of uninterrupted coverage brought to you by RaceBot TV, and the team at Radio Show Limited. We bid you goodbye then after 3 fantastic days of racing. Join us again 2 weeks from now on the 20th of April, same time, same place, where alongside myself, Arjuna Kankipati, Luke Crane, and Lewis McLeod will be there to see all the action. We thank Hugo Luis for working tirelessly behind the scenes to produce the action. But for now, we congratulate Team Redline, the dominant force in the Esports Racing League.